All right, it's 6:30. Let's start off with the pledge. Would somebody like to lead us in that?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I will call to order this meeting of the Nottingham Planning Board for Wednesday, April 8th, 2026 at the Town Office Meeting Room. So our first order of business is our public hearings. The first case that we'll be hearing is case 26004. Sorry, before I do that, I'm going to have the planning board members introduce themselves.
Skip Severance, alternate.
Andrew Lichtenwallner, planning board member.
Drew Stevens, chair.
Danny Arsenal, vice chair.
Adam Ryan, select rep.
Leonard Haney, Stratford Regional Planning Commission.
Tracy Stickney, land use coordinator.
All right, and I will seat Skip for, I suppose, just one of the open member seats in case Chris shows up.
Will be Mr. Open tonight.
There we go. Thank you. Okay, so our first case to hear is case 26004, site plan review, Crum, 17 Gebig Road. Application from Scott R. Frankevich of New Hampshire Land Consultants on behalf of Alexander Crum requesting a site plan review, requests a conversion of a 2-unit structure to 4 units. The affected property is located at 17 Gebig Road in Nottingham and is identified as tax map 19, lot number 9. The initial public hearing was on February 25th. The applicant requested to continue this case to Wednesday, April 8th. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is to vote on accepting this application. Right, Blair?
Yes, that would be
Okay.
correct. And as far as I can tell, the applicant has submitted everything that is necessary to accept it as a complete application. It is revised from the original submission, so.
Okay. And members, there is a review from Blair in your case file for this that you can go over as well. So the application does appear to be complete. So our next step would be to accept the application as complete so that we can take jurisdiction and then deliberate.
I'll make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Could you state the application number?
I can't yet.
26004.
26004.
All right.
Sir.
Have a motion from Mr. Evans, a second from Mr. Ryan. Any further discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, I will turn it over to the applicant.
Thank you. Good evening, Chair and members of the board. For the record, my name is Brett Allard with Shaughnessy Allard. I'm the attorney for the applicant on this project, who is also the owner of the property, Alex Crum, who's seated to my right, and also joined with us to my left is Scott Frankowitz with New Hampshire Land Consultants, the surveyor and licensed septic designer on the project. So this is the second meeting we've had, although we didn't really get into the merits at the first meeting. From what I understand, I wasn't here for that. I had a different attorney in my office covering it due to a scheduling conflict. But there was some questions about application completeness. Obviously, we're past that point now and ready to move forward with the public hearing. So just to give a brief overview, this is 17 Gebig Road. My client purchased this property 2 years ago or so, November 14th, 2024. Okay, so a little less than 2 years ago. And at the time, his understanding was that he was purchasing a 4-unit multifamily building. That was his understanding from the seller, the listing materials, etc. it turned out that after he purchased the property, he found out from the town that 2 of the units were constructed in there by the prior owner without the necessary permits or approvals and were not considered legal units in the eyes of the town. As soon as that came to his attention, he took immediate action to get in touch with Scott, get in touch with me. We worked with Dale over the last 6 months or so on figuring out a permitting avenue to bring the property into compliance, and we were off to the races from there. In connection with our discussion with Dale, what we landed on as the most logical path to conformance was the multifamily conversion of an existing structure which is set forth in the zoning ordinance. We've submitted a we've submitted a letter since the last meeting which outlines how we comply with all of those zoning ordinance criteria. So we don't think there's any zoning issues. We think the proposed multifamily conversion is allowed by right because we've checked all those boxes from a zoning perspective. And what's left for this board to do is to just, apply the site plan regulations in terms of how that would apply to a multifamily dwelling conversion. When we first submitted the application, the proposal was to maintain all 4 units, the 2 legal ones, and then, try to bring into conformance the 2 unpermitted ones from the prior owner. Just throughout the course of the last couple months, and, hearing some concerns from the neighbors, in sort of a show of good faith and trying to make this work and be as amicable as possible, my clients decided since the last meeting to knock out one of those units and just proceed with the 3. So we're only asking to convert the existing structure to 1 additional than is already, there legally, rather than the 2. As a result of sort of, a lot of correspondence and back and forth over the last couple months, there's also been a number of changes to the plan as compared to what was first provided to the board and what you saw in your packet originally. Mostly that has to do with parking. The parking on the west side of the property had, I believe, 5 spaces, 3 spaces. I should pull out my plan because I didn't bring my glasses, so I can't see the board over there. The original plan had 3 spaces that were right up against Jabig Road. So you had to back out onto Jabig Road to exit the property from those 3 parking spaces. What we've done now is we propose to relocate them further west on the property, in between the existing shed and what's sort of a tree line buffer there that you can see on the plan. That's gonna improve the safety over the existing conditions. And also, I think there was some concerns from the neighbor across the street about lights and the lights shining across the street. Given that we're tucking them further into the property and behind some of that wood buffer now, that should also take care of some of the issues with the lights to the extent that was an issue. There's also 5 parking spaces on the other side of the property. Those are already sort of tucked away. You're not backing out of the road. They're fine as they are, in our opinion. Under state law, everyone's dealing with this now. The new thing is you can only have, you're not allowed to, the towns are not permitted to require more than 1 space per dwelling unit. So we only need to have 3, but we have 8, because a lot of it was already there. And obviously, if a site that can handle it, the more parking, the better. So we shuffle things around a little bit and we think that makes sense from a parking standpoint. From a septic standpoint, the existing septic was there, my client wanted to improve, to bring it into modern standards. I don't know that it was necessarily required, but it was something that he wanted to do regardless. And we got local septic approval just a few days ago and state septic approval yesterday. So that's all squared away on that side. Other than that, that's sort of the 30,000 foot overview. I did see a note in Blair's memo about the existing outbuildings. There's I think it's called an outhouse. originally constructed as one out in the way back in the rear of the property. It says cabin. Is the cabin, the outhouse the same thing?
No, it's different.
Okay, it's different. The outhouse is gonna be gone. We're not sure what the deal was with that, with the prior owner, but it's gonna be gone. The cabin is there, it's not really an issue, it's in the same way as a potential outhouse might be, so. That'll stick around for now, but other than that, like I said, I think that's the 30,000-foot view, you know, we think we've certainly satisfied the criteria from a zoning perspective. We think the site plan regs are satisfied as well, and Scott, if there's anything I missed, feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think you covered everything. Septic, as Brett just said, it was approved for 3 units, under their new regulations. It's an enviroseptic system, with a 2,500 gallon tank to treat all the wastewater. I think Brett covered most of it. If there's any questions, other than that, I can answer them.
Thank you. Actually gonna pause real quick. I'm gonna seat Glenn Griswold for one of our open seats on the board. I also neglected to, for the board to determine whether this is a development of regional impact per RSA 3654. For those members new to the board, development of regional impact is whether or not there are potential regional impacts to communities outside of Nottingham that may be caused by the application. This is a multifamily conversion nowhere near the town borders, so this really, you know, there's no way that this would be a development of regional impact, but we do need a motion.
I'll make a motion to, that this is not a, application of regional impact.
All right, we have a motion. Is there a second? Mr. Severin seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, it's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, now I am going to open it up to the board for questions to the applicant. Discussion.
I didn't notice if you, I might have missed it, the storage of dumpsters and trash containers, they were out front at one point. Have those gonna be relocated, relocated to the side or rear and out of sight?
There is no dumpsters on site.
Yeah, there's nothing in front. On the west side of the building, there's a low shed to fit trash, and then there's a couple cans in the back.
Okay.
You guys, sorry, you done?
No, you're right, you can jump back in.
You guys happen to know when the second unit was placed in the building? Any idea on that? I'm just,
Like when it went from a 1-family to a 2-family?
Emily, yeah. There's a date of March 2010.
I know that based on the tax card, that the original structure was built in 1970.
Yep. And then there was an addition put on the house, I think about 23 years ago, and where he created the 2 additional units.
Another question, in order to make this you're cutting it back to 3, you don't need to do any additions, or you're keeping that within the original footprint of the existing building?
No exterior modifications other than the relocated parking.
Okay.
And the square footage of each of the units is listed in my letter there.
All right.
Is the old septic tank gonna be removed? I know you're gonna,
Either crushed and removed, it'll be obviously disconnected.
yeah, disconnect it.
A lot of times you'll just crush them and fill them, compact them.
Yeah. Can you put that on the plan at some point?
No, it typically isn't on the plan. And they hook up the new one and the other one's disconnected.
That's why.
Yeah, I don't even know what is there. I mean, there's no design on file
Yeah.
for the system, so.
Does the board need more time for questions?
I think I've got my questions answered.
Blair, do you have comments or anything you'd like to bring to the board on this?
No, if you look ahead, a few comments, the parking, Brett mentioned it. The septic, no need for the condition because they did submit not only local approval, but state approval. So that's addressed, and then, they did talk about that sort of outbuilding, whatever that might be, that had popped up in conversation. Otherwise, yeah, the things that I have brought up, outside of the standard conditions of, if the board should vote to approve, that they submit, plan copies with, surveyor and wetland signatures, Mylars. Actually, no, we don't need to sign a Mylar, this is a site plan review. But just having everything buttoned up, for the files.
Is any of the space in the bedroom? Yeah, in the basement?
Any living space?
Yeah.
So in one of the units, there's a walkout basement area and also on slab. And one of the so that's the smallest unit, the 1-bedroom. And there's a 3-bedroom with, typical housing. And then the addition that was built is 2 stories and a basement level with double egress.
Okay, so that would be all one.
Yeah, that would be
Unit.
stacked.
Anything else from the board before we move into the public testimony? Going once, going twice? All right, we will move into the public testimony portion. I don't believe we've received any written testimony for this case, is that right? For this one, okay. All right, it is 6:48. I'm now opening the meeting to public input. The questions and comments should be directed at me. And anybody testifying needs to state their name and address for the record. And depending on how many people, or for this one, we might need to limit comments. So, is there anybody from the public here to speak on this case? I sort of first hand over there, if you'd like to come up, and if the applicants wouldn't mind.
Thank you, Drew. My name's John Noor, K-N-O-R-R. I live at 19 Jabig, so I'm the neighbor, and I'm gonna sit, or?
Yeah, please sit.
My concern, I've got a lot of concerns, but my concern is that if they're reducing the number of units down to 3, and they already have 5 parking spots, why are they gonna put 3 parking spots on my property line? And we're gonna now have the lights coming in. Typically, the people that have been living there come in very late at night. There's some drinking going on. And on March 22nd at 2:00 in the morning, they were firing guns on my property, or on the edge of my property. My property actually goes behind 17. We share half of the backyard of their property. It's a weird layout. So I'm concerned that you're now putting people that come home at all hours, use firearms in the middle of the night, and now they're even that much closer to my house. And I'm concerned about that. So you already have 5 spaces. You're only going for 3 units. Why do you need to add 3 more? I'm totally against adding any more parking, especially that close to my house. with irresponsible tenants. And if the owner's not there, you know, he's not there to control it, so. I think the planning board should really think hard about approving this property. It's been a mess for most of the 22 years that my wife and I have lived next door. And I think you approving this is just going to make it continue to be a mess. We moved to Nottingham to live next to this, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Robert Chesley, 20 Jabig Road. I don't really have a lot to add, but I just did want to clarify that you mentioned there was no written testimony. I've provided written testimony, maybe since the first meeting there's been none, but just want to clarify that there is a record of the number of concerns around the property.
Yeah, it's not in here.
Okay, yeah.
Like, I didn't bring my collection. I know that there were a couple that came.
I can
I
see
think
if
from
I can
John
pull it
and-
up so that we can read it into the record
Maybe
after
some
this part of
others.
the public testimony too.
Yeah, I just didn't want that to.
No, I appreciate that. But I'll see if I can find that written testimony and then I will read it into the record after this part of the public.
Sure, and let me know if you need anything, if you don't have it, but the other small thing was just, let's see, where's my train of thought here? As far as the parking, I mean, again, we've been there for 12 years, we've lived with some of the things that John has talked about. Some of the same people that were the root of some of the problems there are still there, which is a problem. Alexander, I've never talked to you about this, but they're the source of the trouble. Really, the biggest issue that I have with it, I don't really care if it's a multifamily unit all that much, but I don't wanna live next to some of the behavior that we've seen, and the parking on the east side is, there are 5 in spaces, but then there's 2 on the end. And Mason parks in one of them, and he backs out onto Jabig from there, but there are actually 7 spaces there. There's a cart in one of them, so there's 7 over there. And the 3 that were talked about in the plan in front of the garage under that's been turned into an apartment and is not in use is really only room for 2. And you can look at the tax card to see that those cars are sticking out, and they responded to that, which is fair. You know, I'm a little concerned that 3 cars backing out now and pulling out will be illuminating my house at all hours of the night too. So not a big deal, that's all I have.
Thank you. Other members of the public wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Ally Gard. I live at 21 Jabig Road with my husband David. We've lived in town for 8 years, and this is an unfortunate way to welcome our neighbor into our neighborhood. But I have various concerns to follow John and Bob, but as well as more of the zoning concerns that are associated with it. Looking at what the zoning board has set as the guidelines for multifamily units, it looks like there needs to be a minimum of 2 acres per unit from what I saw, as well as a 100-foot buffer between the unit as well as the neighboring property. When I look up the tax card, what I see is that they have 2.6 acres, right? So that doesn't seem to necessarily align with what is needed for these multifamily dwellings. The additional concern that I personally have is, you know, Jabig Road is a quiet country road. We understand that there are houses that have, you know, an additional unit in there. But I think when we're talking about the integrity of the neighborhood, there's a certain, I don't know if standard is the right word, but a certain image that we want to portray. Not to say that the renters would necessarily be an issue, although the ones that are currently in there are. But I believe that, you know, we want to maintain a certain feel to the neighborhood. And my personal concern is that if we are allowing a 3 to 4 unit property in there, that's kind of setting the precedent for anything else coming in the future, especially as people may put up their land for property or subdivide. So that's really the general concern. The other thing is to follow with John. I actually live the property down from him, and so those headlights do directly shine into our home as well if they were to move that. I believe there is safety concerns with that parking area to begin with. The other side, the east side that has the 5 or 7 spaces that Bob mentioned, not necessarily an issue. I'm okay with that. But the other side, between the way that they're turning around, I don't even think that there's necessarily the space for, if they were to shift the parking spaces over and have it face down towards our property, for somebody to back up and then pull forward into the road. So there are safety concerns. We've experienced it when we're riding up the hill. My husband rides a motorcycle, and there's been numerous times where people have pulled out in front of him from that property. So there's a lot of concerns, just to be quite honest, so, yeah.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wishing to speak on this case? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing at 6:55. I could not locate the written testimony that was sent. I'm not sure if somebody has a copy perhaps.
So I thought it was, what we were kind of throwing at me recent, so they said there was nothing recent. My apologies. Yeah, that's, that's one of them, Bob Chesley, this is the one from Bob. Yeah, so my mistake, I was thinking of the wrong.
What's it?
It's okay, as long as we get it.
It's for general.
This actually looks like it has a control.
Which is different.
Yeah, that's the email that he sent out.
You have them there, Drew?
Yeah, although
Conversions.
the first member of the public who came up to speak, I don't think either of these is his. I have one from Bob Chesley and one from Sue Penny and Glenn Moore. Is that?
Bob Chesley was the one that came up.
They're on the other side, they're number 50.
That, neither of these is your letter, right? Yeah,
I
okay.
thought that was.
No, that is, what was your name? John Knorr? Knorr, okay.
No, I didn't
I don't
write a
believe I have
letter.
You didn't write a letter?
The second person.
Oh, okay, all right. So then we do have the letters that have been written, okay.
Yeah.
All right, sorry for that confusion. So I will read the first letter into the record. This is from Bob Chesley, 20 Gebig Road, January 19, 2026. Nottingham Planning Board Chair and members, I'm writing to provide feedback on case 26004 site plan review, Crum, 17 Gebig Road, currently before the planning board. First, I will address the thesis and points from the application letter prepared by Mr. Frankevich of New Hampshire Land Consultants on behalf of Mr. Crum. Then I will comment on our ongoing concerns related to any change in status from this application. As to the point that Mr. Crum was unaware of the allowed use of the property prior to the sale, the property tax card clearly indicates that the land type was two-family residential. I would expect an experienced real estate investor making this type of purchase would perform due diligence and that this would be a key concern. In any event, ignorance of the law or ordinance is generally not a valid defense or excuse. The letter's only other thesis or rationale for approval seems to be nothing more than that historically the additional units had been rented and that other issues such as septic, water, and parking concerns were also historically adequate for the intended use. My primary response to this rationale is to note that historically the excess rentals at 17 Gebig Road were in violation of the Nottingham zoning ordinance for the property type and therefore illegal, which is why when all this came to light, Dale initiated a cease and desist order on additional rentals pending review. The fact that something illegal was done in the past hardly seems like a good argument that it should be allowed or sanctioned by the town in the future. The idea that historical practice proves that septic, water, and parking issues are not in question is also suspect because the rentals have seen a frequently changing level of occupancy over time, and therefore these issues have likely not been evaluated with all units in use for an extended period of time. Since my initial complaint started this process, we have seen very little done other than a survey and some minimal tree cutting that would assuage our core concerns. As the abutter who has been most affected by the issues raised below the aggrieved party, I want to reiterate the most relevant issues as follows. Excessive traffic and noise associated with the number of vehicles on the property or coming and going at all hours. Excessive illumination of our property from both parking areas, east side lot, and southwest spaces in front of what was originally a single garage under. Given that the property is only set back about 20 feet from the road, the traffic and parking issues are amplified. As I mentioned in my original complaint, existing conversions should be held to similar standards as new multifamily projects, especially as it relates to setbacks. Although not currently codified as such in the regulations, it seems reasonable to consider the issue. Allowing 3 parking spaces on the southwest corner is not reasonable or safe. There is only room for 2 at most, and they are right on the road where a poorly applied parking brake could result in a car rolling down the hill onto our property. This has happened before. Cars parked here are also routinely almost in the road on what is probably the most dangerous spot on Jebbig Road for pedestrians or traffic, rising turn with poor visibility and the presence of 17 Jebbig Road right on the road. Cars traveling on Jebbig past number 17 frequently have to slow or wait while cars maneuver in and out of these spaces, as well as the main lot. Given that Mr. Crum appears to be planning to operate this property as an absentee landlord, wherein the apparent on-site property manager is the son of the prior owner, we feel that other issues from the past are likely to continue or increase. See my original complaint for details. You can corroborate the historical issues with Dale or the Nottingham Police Department, or contact me directly to discuss further as needed. I respectfully request this application not be approved at this time. Sincerely yours, Bob Chesley. That's the first letter. Second letter that I will read into the record is from Susan Penny. Good evening, Tracy and board members. Can you please confirm that this case will be discussed on Friday, February 25th, 2026? I need to leave work early to attend. We are not sure what is being done specifically. For example, the septic system was listed as insufficient. Is it being upgraded? What else is proposed to change? Why is this plan being considered when the property does not meet current setback and acreage requirements? The property is effectively a minimum lot and already insufficient for 2 units. 4 units requires 8 acres, likely to minimize concerns such as noise and light affecting neighbors. Regarding the new owner's belief that the property was 4 legal units, the previous owner indicating doors within the house which could be sealed to create more units does not make them legal. We are opposed to additional tenants, particularly with no owner in residence. Please also tell us or point us to any short-term rental restrictions. There is already a great deal of noise from the property. The dirt parking area has been used for auto maintenance, and the parking spaces are about 50 feet from our well. Our understanding is that the town setback rule only applies to buildings, not to the parking area added shortly before the house sold. Is this correct? 4 parking spaces are inside the setback zone. 2 are about 15 feet from our property line, which is already allowed. Multiple spaces are oriented such that headlights point directly into our home's bedrooms. Additional cars will exacerbate noise and light issues. There was also an outhouse built recently within the setback area and near the wetlands at the back of the property. This is not environmentally sound and should be removed regardless of the outcome of this plan. Given the lot size and the house's location on it, adding more tenants will further crowd the area most impactful to surrounding properties. Coupled with the owner not occupying the home, this seems more likely to increase current concerns, not to benefit existing residents or the town. Kind regards, Sue Penny and Glenn Moore. And that's all we have for written testimony. So at this point, I am gonna, back here, would you all like to respond to any of those comments?
Yeah, just briefly, because I think most of the comments follow 2 or 3 similar themes. In terms of the parking, we're not adding any spaces. I think I heard that said. There's already, 8 spaces there. We're just proposing to take 3 of them that had a dangerous egress to back out on the road and move them so it's a bit of a safer situation. We're only required to have 3 parking spaces. If the board wants us to get rid of some parking spaces, we can do that. But I think it makes sense, since we're gonna have a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom. It's more than what the state requires, but it probably makes sense to have 1 space per bedroom, which would be 6 spaces. We have 8. There's plenty of flexibility there. There's plenty of wiggle room. In terms of the issues with the 2 unit per acre, the buffer, et cetera, that all applies to if this was a vacant lot and we wanted to build a new multifamily building. Then we would have to comply with the 2 acre minimum per dwelling unit, all the buffers, all of the dimensional requirements that bind to new multifamily projects, but the legislative body has determined that there should be an exception to those rules for multifamily conversions in existing structures. And when you're going under the multifamily conversion for existing structures, you're exempted from the minimum lot size, you're exempted from pretty much all of the dimensional requirements that would otherwise apply to new projects. And that much is set forth in my letter where I address that component of the zoning criteria. In terms of the issues with the tenants, it sounds like there have been some issues, but those are all code enforcement issues. Those really are outside the purview of what this board is being asked to consider and approve tonight. Certainly, the neighbors can deal with local law enforcement. I think there's problems. They could bring these issues to Dale to talk about code enforcement if they think there's problems, but really that's outside the purview of what this board is being asked to consider tonight. I think I heard a couple times that, this will set a precedent and these units were illegal, and they shouldn't be, blessed now. The Supreme Court's been clear just as recently in 2021 in the Chichester Commons case that these types of applications don't establish precedent. Each one of them stands on its own merits, each property is unique, and the board is in no way bound to grant a future application, whether that's a multifamily conversion or otherwise, just because it grants this application tonight. Particularly where, this application meets all of the objective criteria in the zoning ordinance and in the site plan regulations. And we're certainly not arguing that because the illegal units are already there, the board should just rubber stamp it. What we're saying is those units are there, yes, 2 of them are illegal, one's gonna be eliminated, and the one that remains satisfies all of the objective criteria for a multifamily conversion in the town's regs, and that's why the board should grant the variance. No precedent, no anything like that. So with that, I think I covered everything. I'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Thank you. Board?
Yeah, I have a question. Hang on just a second, I'm just trying to sort out which section this is in. Under non-conforming lots, and non-conforming uses, section U1 in Article 4. It says that any non-conforming use existing on the effective date of these ordinances may be continued indefinitely, provided that such use shall not be expanded, enlarged, extended, or moved to any other portion of the lot. Changed to another non-conforming use, reestablished if such use has been discontinued for a period of 12 months, or changed to or replaced by a conforming use. And then there's some more stuff in that section of the ordinance that I feel is relevant to this case as far as it goes, considering that it is a non-conforming use, it is a non-conforming lot for the use that it is being used for. So if we accept the application and move forward with it and approve it, I feel like we would be allowing that non-conformance to be expanded.
The units that aren't permitted are not non-conforming uses. Because the term non-conforming use that's used in the zoning ordinance, it doesn't say this because it's a mouthful, but when the term non-conforming use is used, it means legal pre-existing non-conforming use. And there's a whole host of case law and statutes and most town regulations that set forth requirements just like that sort of restrict the expansion of legal pre-existing non-conforming uses, because the point of zoning is to try to reduce or, at least stall those from expanding based on legislative changes that have come after those legal pre-existing non-conforming uses establish themselves. That's not at issue here. There's 2 units that are legal. We're asking for 1 more. That additional unit is permitted under the multifamily dwelling conversion. So I think we're completely outside the realm of expansion of legal pre-existing non-conforming uses, which is a zoning question.
Except for the fact that, as was noted in one of the letters, in order to have that many units on a lot, you need 2 acres per unit. And there's clearly not that area.
For new projects, correct.
But if we're granting this third one, that would be making a new unit.
Under the multifamily dwelling conversion exception to the 2 unit per acre density regulation. So it's not a non-conforming use, it's allowed under the conversion regulations, which is an exception to the 2 acre density minimum.
Can you point that out? Because I'm pretty sure when we were going through multifamily conversions, that was something that we had.
Sure, it's the multifamily dwelling conversion section of the zoning ordinance, and it is subsection B. The multifamily units shall not be considered to be additional dwelling units for the purpose of determining minimum lot size. Actually, just to play that out a little bit more, if we could satisfy the square footage for each unit, because no single unit can be less than, 1 bedroom unit can be less than 350 square feet, no 2 bedroom can be less than 550 square feet, it says at the top. We could go up to 8 units. The maximum number of dwelling units per residential lot shall not exceed 8 units. And that's without regard to minimum lot size, because conversions are exempted from minimum lot size. Now, of course, we're not asking for 8 units, and this lot in this building cannot support 8 units, but it can support the 3 in compliance with the minimum square footage requirements that are also contained in this portion of the zoning ordinance.
Glenn, are you good for now?
I think so.
Okay. Other comments from the board?
Yeah, one of the things that's bothered me, and I've noticed a lot, that you've called the 2 units as being legal. And I looked in the files and I tried to determine how that single family residence became a 2-family residence. And I didn't find it. So I have an issue with it being legal to be 2. I don't wanna go backwards, but if we can find someplace in our records that indicates it's gone to a 2-family in the legal process, which would be site plan review and that kind of stuff, it seems like we have that. It seems like we would then know that it's now a legal 2-bedroom.
You wouldn't need site plan review to go from a single to a 2. Site plan review jurisdiction only kicks in with 3+ units.
That is true. Well, but the duplex, it becomes a duplex at that point, except at that point, there's no owner occupied, right?
Yeah, I think,
Duplex.
I think the starting point is kind of, I don't think it really applies, because it would be applicable either way, if they went from 1 to 3 or 2 to 3.
Right.
Well, although I hear you, my point is, somehow or another,
Dale's position was that 2 units were legal. I mean,
yeah,
That was his
and I
conclusion.
don't know how he came up with that, I
but
guess, is what I'm saying.
like Blair
And-
said, even if we only had 1 legal unit, we still satisfy all the objective criteria to go from 1 to 3 or to go from 2 to 3. I hear you, it's a question,
I've just
and this is,
been bugging me big.
it might have happened 40 years ago, 30 years
Yeah,
ago,
I-
and maybe
I
the
don't
records
know.
were lost.
Sounded
or-
like it was the addition time frame.
Skip, my understanding of it from Dale is that the previous building inspector was a little lax on how that process went, and that it essentially happened without getting records in properly. And so as far as Dale is
So, like,
concerned,
was there a
since it-
building permit for the second unit at least?
not that anybody, yeah.
Yeah.
I think there was a building permit issued after a second unit was there, which while it wasn't for a second unit, it's at the time that there was a second, so
Okay,
knee bone connected to the shin bone, it's
okay.
sort of being blessed from a prior scenario.
So I agree, we're making it better, and I'm glad you came in. But we still have this. I already killed the person, but since I'm a nice guy, it's okay, kind of a scenario. I'm having trouble with, not that's not a good analogy, but.
We're not killing anybody here.
I know what you mean, that it can feel awkward to bless something that wasn't done right in the beginning.
Right.
But fortunately, under, you know, the way the law looks at it, in terms of planning and zoning law, is that each application stands on its own merits, and each application has to meet objective criteria. And it's really not relevant, but obviously it wasn't my client who did it.
Right.
He inherited this problem and now he's trying to make it right. He didn't try to pull a fast one on the town and now is asking for forgiveness rather than permission.
Right.
Again, that's not even really relevant, but contextually, I think it puts it into perspective, so I hear you.
It's a good thing that the process is being used. I support that.
And
And
this
again-
adds more needed housing opportunities in the town, and multifamily conversions are a good way to add more of that capacity without large development.
And volunteer, to reiterate, voluntarily going down from 4 units to 3. When we first brought this to the board, it was 4 units, and I think we meet the criteria for 4 units. I think the board, you know, should approve 4 units if that's what we asked for, but he's heard the concerns from everyone, and he's made the voluntary, you know, offer to bring it down to 3. So I think it's a fair compromise that didn't actually even need to be offered, but was as a sign of good faith and, you know, coming to the town and doing what, you know, what he felt was right.
I did appreciate the meeting in the middle there with the 3 units. I'm sure some of the neighbors did as well. You know, it's unfortunate that this is, you know, everyone's seeing that, you know, the guy previously, just pretty much went on his own program and didn't follow the rules, and it almost seemed like he came out with a win. But, I'm sure you're gonna have to go through everything and make it a real multifamily now, and it wasn't as easy as you probably thought it was gonna be, so as long as people know that that's not okay at all, and that, you know, kinda, guess our hands are tied a little bit, or at least I feel like mine are, so.
So is there a way there can be a fence installed someplace over here to take care of the headlights issue? Or trees, or?
I don't see why not.
Both sides.
Yeah, both sides.
Okay.
You wanna make that a condition?
Yeah. We have others.
Do we have any others?
I have a couple comments. Thank you for coming in and bringing this messy situation to current. It appears from our multifamily conversion zoning district that provision number 4, that for conversions, that there's a residential lot in existence prior to March 30th, 2010, and that this building was built in 1970, so I think it fills the existing criteria of this this matter. there's a one or two items, I understand you have to go to the building department and, you know, go through and rebuild and make things legal and legit. And perhaps that's part of the fourth unit being in the basement or something, not having, you know, adequate light, ventilation, whatever the criteria is for the building department. I would like it to be acknowledged that there will be fire safety, you know, smoke detectors and safety requirements and egress is put in there, according to the building department. But right in here it says a building permit will be had, and Dale's a good guy and he's gonna be watching you.
Dale's a good guy.
The other thing that's not in here, there's two things that were talked about. So on Mr. Griswold brought up the non-conforming lot, but this is an existing structure and I think it's falls within this category readily. On the parking, our site plan review regs are scant on parking, but it does say you can't have parking within 20 feet of the side or rear. It doesn't say anything about the front. One of the parking spaces may be in the front setback there on the west side, but it doesn't up that one. Yes, so our zoning doesn't say anything about that, but just an observation there. We have no provisions about water supply and you know, water quality, and if you're not living there, you're not drinking the water perhaps, so hopefully you can accept the responsibility for if there's a water problem, well goes dry, water safety issues, that you as the owner are responsible, and that the planning board does not accept any responsibility about that in virtue of giving you an approval. Does that sound fair enough?
That seems very fair.
Okay. That's my main comments, I guess. Thank you.
Comments from the board?
So if the board were to choose to make a motion to approve, I would suggest a few findings of fact to make part of the notice of decision. There's a lot of discussion about being a little bit more robust. We used to do it with a pretty standard, it meets zoning, it meets master plan. But there are a few other suggestions that I would make for the board to consider as part of the notice of decision, to add a little bit more substance to this for the notice of decision, you know, for the record. So if and when it comes time for a motion, we could, perhaps I could read these out. If the board wants to edit them, they could edit them. If they want to agree to them, they could just, you know, say as spoken and make it part of the decision, and then take a subsequent vote on the actual matter of the application. So it would be a vote on the findings of fact and then a vote on.
Would you share those findings that we should be covering to make sure that this is a happy ending?
Yeah, I've got a few I can share. They're pretty simple, just sort of establishing some baseline acknowledgements of findings of fact. When you're ready, I just want to put it in there. I don't want it to get overlooked.
And just to be clear, this board is a land use board. We don't have any jurisdiction over how people act on their property in any way. That is a civil issue that needs to be referred to the police. We can't make land use decisions based on assumptions about how people are going to act on a property. Just wanted to make sure that's clear. Mr. Griswold?
Sorry, I've just got one more thing. Because of the fact that the neighbors specifically brought up some of the site distance and parking issues, you know, being pretty familiar with that area, the driveway that's at the bottom of the hill there, I can see where that would be potentially an issue given site distances. And I don't know if that's been looked at or if the, you know, the fact that there's the two driveways, might potentially cause an issue.
Yeah, we haven't talked about driveway permits, have we?
I am not trying to be difficult or anything, it's just the, you know, looking at the rules, it does say that we need to look at, adequate parking, egress, turnarounds, such like. And, you know, health and safety.
Do you know site distance, Scott?
I doubt that there's any approved permit, so we could definitely have
The site distance wise?
yeah, I mean, I've driven in and out of there with my truck and I haven't had any issues. I mean,
Seems like it's okay.
it's a very low road, low traffic road.
It is a low traffic road, I'm just,
I did,
ride my bike up through there.
I did kind of have an issue when I went by there with the two parking spaces that were parked right and backed straight into the road, but they've
No, they fixed
they've
that.
corrected that with the existing driveway and put it up to the back, so I think that's that meets the egress and turning vehicles within the site,
Yeah,
criteria F.
there's no reason for anybody to be backing out on the Jamaica Road.
No, that's, so hopefully you'll speak with the tenants there and put up a no parking sign or something like that. That seemed like that was kind of an unsafe spot. I did drive by there, I didn't notice the sight distance coming in or out was unreasonable or blind or something.
Pretty good.
And you were amenable to putting fences for visual screening on both of the parking areas and make sure that the lights weren't.
Absolutely, whatever solid wood or the metal, or the mesh black fence.
Danny, you look puzzled.
I'm good.
Okay.
Any other discussion, comments from the board?
I would make a motion if we're ready.
I think you wanted to read out the potential findings of fact, correct?
If you don't mind. Alright, so I've got 5 here. The planning board finds that the board considered the plan at its February 25th, 2026 meeting and determined not to accept the submitted application package as complete. The board and the applicant agreed to continue the matter. Second fact, the planning board finds the application to be complete and declared there to be no regional impact at its April 8th, 2026 meeting. The planning board finds the subject parcels to be an existing 2-unit dwelling. The planning board accepted public testimony at the April 8th, 2026 meeting, and that is to be referenced in the meeting minutes, the minutes of the meeting. And the last one, the planning board finds that the approved plans meet the development controls set forth in the town's site plan review regulations and zoning ordinance and meet the intent of the master plan. So it's kind of just, it's not a retelling of the story, it's just established some baseline things that are acknowledged. You know, kind of allows the board to so then proceed to the point of making a motion to approve, deny, continue, whatever it might end up doing.
And did you say that the board should make a motion on the findings of fact on its own?
I would think so. I guess you could make it a part of someone else's motion to do whatever with conditions and stuff, yeah. You could do it that way. I don't really have a procedural precedence to work from on this. I think Ed used to just do it at the end. But I feel like we should be a little more formal about it now.
If it's cleaner that way, then that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'll make a motion. Case number 26-004, site plan review for Crum on 17 Jabig Road on this April 8th date, I believe. The planning board has reviewed the applications and reviewed the criteria of the zoning ordinance, more particularly section Y, multifamily, section 4, for the conversion of an existing building into a multifamily. And that based on evidence presented and discussion and findings and review, that we move to accept this application and approve this application with the conditions as read by Blair. And couple further conditions. One, that some fencing or screening is placed at the ends of the parking lots adjacent to the neighbors, perhaps on both sides, just to provide some screening of lights from tenants. That the existing driveways are not changed, they're existing, and as shown on the plan, that the water supply is entirely, the water supply quality and quantity is completely at the responsibility of the owner and not subject to the planning board's decision. There will be a cabin removed on the rear of the property, shown as X cabin.
I think that's an outhouse.
Outhouse?
Outhouse, yeah.
Thank you, whatever it is, that building in the back is pulled out. And that lastly, that in with the building permit, section D, that you're meeting fire safety codes for whatever they may be with the building permit for the people there.
How about plan copies with professional seals and signatures?
Oh, great, yes, I'm gonna continue that.
Conditions.
Standard conditions. you can
Standard
say.
conditions, as noted on the
You don't have to
That's
go
good.
through all of it. Standard
on thing,
conditions.
and the conditions as read by Blair, if I didn't already cover that one, sorry.
We have a motion.
Is there should there be a time limit as to when the septic system goes in
And the fence.
and the fence?
Did you say not to change the parking spaces?
No change to the parking spaces as shown on the plan.
So Chris, did you want to add what Skip just suggested to your motion?
A date of completion for the easiest one probably is the fencing.
We typically, I guess,
Well, I think one of the conditions they presented is the septic system. There's a plan for a new septic system.
yeah.
I think in order to get a building permit, he's probably gonna have to comply with the conditions of approval. So I don't necessarily know that he's incentivized to get it done so he can get a building permit.
Yeah, I that's, with subdivisions, it's a lot easier. I think in this case, the building permit is the impetus. He doesn't get a building permit, doesn't get a certificate of occupancy, certainly, until these things are done.
Right.
It's just the fence,
Well,
probably the only
But
thing.
they're already living there, right? There's already people living there.
Yeah, there's two of the units are occupied.
Oh, two, okay.
He has,
Yeah,
yeah, he
That's the
hasn't,
third one, okay.
Yeah, there's
The third
four, and the other ones aren't occupied because Dale let me know of the repercussions.
I should have mentioned that in my presentation. Yeah. The illegal units have not been occupied since this all started.
Alright, so
When were they not occupied?
So I bought it November 14th. Dale called me like end of December and was into compliance within a week.
So it sounds like we don't need a date for the septic system?
No, cause he's gonna have to get a permit and a CO, so.
Right.
And he also has to make sure he meets the conditions, 200 conditions.
Okay.
Or the,
The fence, end of summer?
Sure.
If that takes care of the headlights, then why not change the parking spaces? And that would solve the backing out into the road.
Well,
That has been addressed from the original plan.
yeah,
There shouldn't be cars backing out on the road, given the
now,
now proposed parking.
but the headlights, if they pull into the spot, will shine into the neighbors.
Yeah, I think that's the issue, is when they pull in
Yeah.
off the driveway.
And having the fence will help with noise complaints as well. I mean, not really relevant, but
Privacy.
Yeah, I'm taking advantage of the long hours of the day.
Do you wanna give it 90 days, 120 days,
You know what, I
something
would
like
say
that?
do that because I don't think a fence requires a building permit if it's under 6 feet, correct? So I would say just, yeah, if you wanna say 90 days.
Well,
Seems like enough time, at least.
I'll amend my motion to add, adding the fencing within 60 days and, the, completion. 90 days?
Because contractors, they book out.
We say 90?
Everyone's getting busy
I
right
said
now.
90 days, sorry. 90 days.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I guess with these stipulations, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Evans and a second for Mr. Ryan. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
Okay, that motion carries 6-0-1. And the findings of fact for this case are as Mr. Haney dictated earlier. I will not read them again.
Chris had it in his motion, so we're covered.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. All right,
Very much.
thank you. The night is young. All right, we need to move on with the meeting. If you wouldn't mind taking that out into the hallway.
You're gonna have SWAT teams on that property by the summertime.
Okay. Our next case to be heard is case 26007, site plan review, Precision Cut Lumber LLC, 123 Old Turnpike Road. Could you please stop the crosstalk? We're trying to hold a meeting here. Thank you. Application from Ian McKinnon of Jones and Beach Engineers on behalf of Precision Cut Lumber LLC requesting a site plan review. The intent of this project is to construct two 56-foot by 100-foot chicken houses to expand the poultry and egg business. The affected property is located at 123 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham, New Hampshire, and is identified as tax map 4, lot 1-1. Okay, so our first thing to do with this application is to determine whether it is complete. Does the board have any questions or discussion about the completeness of this application?
I'll jump in. So the applicant received a variance from the ZBA for a single dwelling unit at the March 17th, 2026 meeting. So as Drew mentioned, what you're talking about is just the proposal for the chicken houses, the agricultural use. It's not the residential use. And the applicant is here under a site plan review application for non-residential use, which is agriculture. And so, meeting the site plan review regulations is what is like sort of the framework of how we're reviewing this. There were no waivers requested. The board can discuss the merits of the application in a minute, but I just wanted to go over, what's before you. As far as I can tell, the application does appear to meet the minimum standards for accepting the application as complete and taking ownership of it. It also, in my opinion, does not meet the standards of a development of regional impact. So, yeah.
Can you repeat that? Yeah, what was that?
Yeah, what was the last part?
It does not meet the standard?
Sorry?
I think they had a question about your comment that it's not a development, a DRI. That it's not, it wouldn't be a
Yeah,
DRI.
right, yeah, so this application as proposed does not meet the standards of a development of regional impact.
Which means?
Oh,
Yeah, could you?
well, we went over it in the beginning, I thought we were on the same page, my bad. A development of regional impact is something that would pull in abutting communities, adjacent communities as an abutter. And add an additional layer of review from a regional planning commission, which is what I'm a part of. And then it would allow any other community that was identified by the board that could potentially be impacted to become to have standing as an abutter. So the same way that if you're a neighbor and you have standing as an abutter, you know, an adjacent town would be able to have standing as an abutter.
And the town of Barrington would have received public notice about this case, and they had the chance to submit any testimony on this case, and we haven't received any from Barrington on this case. All right, so our first thing is to decide whether to accept this application as complete. If there isn't any discussion on the completeness of the application, I would entertain a motion.
But I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a 30,000 square foot lot envelope on this plan somewhere?
So that's not what we're
Is that-
currently accepting
They have
it,
the variance,
whether or
it
not
doesn't
the site plan review requirements for us to take it under our jurisdiction and discuss it have been completed. So did they fill out the application and provide all the materials needed for us to make further determinations on the plan?
Check.
Looking for a motion?
I am looking for a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept case number 26-007, Precision Cut Lumber LLC at 123 Old Turnpike Road, accept the application as complete.
Second.
All right, we have a motion from Mr. Ryan and a second from Mr. Arsenault. Any further discussion on that? All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. So the next motion is voting on whether it's a development of regional impact.
I'll make a motion that is not an application of regional impact.
I'd like the second.
All right, we've got a motion from Mr. Evans and a second from Mr. Ryan. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Also unanimous. Okay, applicant, would you please state your name?
Sure. Ian McKim with Jonesy Beach Engineers. Here with me tonight is the applicant, the owner of Precision Cut Lumber, Wade Demanch. So we were before this board, that'd be going back to the February meeting and a preliminary status, let me back to January actually. Kind of to present really what you see on the plans today. We kind of developed them, put some more detail on the plans since that. And as Blair mentioned, we did go for the zoning board for an unrelated permission for a residential use on the second story of the existing building. So there'll be a conversion of that space. But the application before you tonight is to permit the construction of 2 chicken houses. One will be completed in the short term, and the possibility of a second. But again, from a planning perspective, we want to make sure that we kind of located the first one, such that we have space for a second one if the need arises. So again, this is map 4 lot 1-1, 123 Old Turnpike Road. The entire parcel is roughly 31.5 acres. The first sheet in your set, and I apologize, my tripod broke, but for those in the audience, there's kind of an overall sheet there. The site that the site activity that you see today occupies about the front 2.5-3 acres. There's a 300-foot kind of minimum frontage leg that the business lies in today. Under this proposed project, we're still under the 4-acre mark in terms of total site usage. There is some log storage further back in the property, closer to the limit of the commercial and residential agricultural zone, which is the 1,000-foot offset from Route 4. So we're not proposing any development in the rear of this lot, adjacent to or abutting some of the residential abutters. So the existing wood processing and wood shop business does operate from the site. This was approved in 2021 by the board, and that is the two-story business and some of the other wood processing and wood shop items that you see on the property. In addition to the wood shop building, there is a structure that encloses the kiln. There's a sawmill with enclosure. It does not qualify as a structure because it's actually kind of a cover attached to the sawmill itself that just sits on the ground. And then there is a small equipment storage hoop house that was approved with the original site plan. So the proposed site improvements again include a 56 by 100 chicken house to be completed as soon as possible, pending this process, and provision for a second future chicken house of the same size, likely under a future phase. But again, we want to make sure for good site planning purposes that we had space for a second one with the location of the first. The existing equipment storage structure would need to be relocated as part of that future chicken house, but will remain at least during this first phase. There will be a composting area constructed with this. That will be operated under the guidance of the state's best management practice. They have a guidance document on how to essentially process chicken manure in an 8-step process such that it is a for sale fertilizer item and is a pretty desirable garden fertilizer. So essentially that any waste generated on site is processed on site through that 8-step process, and is actually something that the business can sell. So there's no long-term stockpiling. Basically, once it's ready for sale, there's again via the guidance, it is sold, and I don't think it's been decided more at the retail level, but I think right now it's once there's enough to be put in a truck, there's plenty of farms that would like that composted manure. We are proposing as part of the plan, it's kind of detailed to a degree, but we're happy to discuss with the board kind of the limitation of it is some revegetation of the site. There's an existing chicken hoop house now, because there is chickens on the site now. With the construction of this structure, Mr. Manager is looking to increase the number of chickens on the property. So currently that kind of non-structure hoop house exists to the west side of the property. We're moving the enclosure for the chickens into this larger structure, which needs to comply with all the town's building setbacks. And the area that the current hoop house occupies would be revegetated. And fencing is proposed to go along with this project. There's a new, I believe, at least a 6 to 8 foot chain link fence planned along a good portion of the western boundary and kind of wrapping back into the site. So that's kind of shown plan north on your plans in front of you because we're rotated 90 degrees with these plans.
Ian, does that enclose anywhere, or is that L-shaped?
It is. It's currently is an L shape, and I'll be honest, it was something that kind of talking to Wade, it was interesting, like, why not enclose it? And it's kind of this, the chickens, my understanding is that the chickens do need a boundary within a certain radius of that chicken house. And obviously right now, they roam a certain distance, they kind of have a radius they're comfortable with. And if there's any sort of activity, their respite is to go right back to that chicken house. I think it's even if a plane flies over, they're making a run for the chicken, their current home. So we're trying to provide a structural boundary there to the abutter to the west. But to wrap the whole site, at least at this time, we didn't feel was necessary. And then I think it's important to note that the chickens will be housed, during the evening or colder weather within this chicken house. But the idea is that, by revegetating the area around this chicken house, it's still, and as it operates today, these will be free range chickens. that have access to that grassed area on the property. They're not kept inside at all times, but the structure will certainly provide a year-round, long-term protection for them. Additional traffic, currently, the reason for this, and Mr. Demanch discussed it, I think previously at the preliminary hearing. Really, there's a couple kind of large restaurant users that he has agreements with, that once he gets his production in place, they'll be kind of his primary clients, and producing a large number of eggs every week. Even with that, we're only estimating 3 to 5 trips per week for the egg deliveries. It's a once per week delivery to the restaurants. So from a traffic perspective, I can tell you the DOT permit that we have, that wouldn't even constitute a need for an amended driveway permit in terms of a trip threshold. And then again, I think it was discussed previously, just because I want to make sure, I know there's a lot of people here in the audience, as a reminder, and trust me, I think I discussed it in length at the preliminary, that familiarizing myself with the state agricultural rules. It had been a couple of years since I've had to do anything with the agriculture uses. The agricultural use of the property is not under the review with this application. So the poultry business itself isn't allowed by right use. And that this application is strictly for the review and approval of the site improvements to go along with that use to support it. The composting area, the chicken houses, and any sort of essentially site activity or improvements. Those do need to be reviewed. That's covered under the RSA 674-32C that requires any new, reestablished, or expanded agricultural operation or activities to comply with generally applicable land use regulations, provided that the board approve waivers if any regulations within the town codes would effectively prohibit the agricultural use. And then that by right agricultural use is under RSA 2134. So just to make sure that I think we understand that we're here for the improvements on the property to create the chicken houses, but the use of the property for the poultry business is allowed by right, and that's why we didn't include it in any approvals with the zoning board process. I'll leave it there. If there's questions, we'll have to take them.
All right, thank you. I'll open it up to the board for questions.
Could you repeat the last two RSAs you mentioned?
Yep, RSA, so the first is RSA 21:34, so that's the agricultural use. And then RSA 674:32-C. That plus some of the precedent ones lay the stage as what governs under state law, what businesses, what agricultural businesses have in terms of protections related to land use. But it does, as a way a lot of state RSAs are, there's just a vague compliance there that says, hey, you can do this use, but you need to kind of work with the town to come to get a site review that's amenable to everybody.
Yeah, the 674-32C does say, shall grant a waiver from such requirement to the extent necessary to reasonably permit the agricultural use or activity unless such waiver would have a demonstrated adverse effect on public health or safety or on the value of adjacent property. That's from the RSA. Like we're a planning board, so I don't know how we would determine what public health and safety or effects on the value of adjacent property are. That's honestly way outside of any of our expertise, but that is in the RSA as well, so we need to be cognizant of that. But like you said, it's to work together to.
Yeah, certainly was interesting to me reading the state law that the RSA says they shall, which we all know is a very deliberately used word, which again, I read to reread this several times to make sure I understood it, but.
Was the composting reference made?
I don't have there's no RSA that covers it. It's the state puts out, I'm not sure which agency, there's a lot of different applications. They put out a guidance document. So what we're showing on the plan is a 60 by 100 area. They essentially have a template, and that 60 by 100 area is what the state feels you can do an 8 zone. So it's basically, if you go to a landscape supply, it's, you create bins and you move it, after a certain prescribed time, you kind of move and turn it over so many times from bin to bin, and after that 8 steps, it's at a compost level that could be sold or used if it was to be used on site for like a farm or something, but it's a guidance document. I think you've sent it to me in the past, but it's put up by one of the state agencies, the agriculture agencies.
Sorry, I can verify.
Yeah.
The proposed composting area here, 2 questions. You explained a little bit what that'll look like, but what, is that stockpiling of manure and compost on just the ground itself? Is there some type of containment? And so in our regs, the wetland protection overlay says that any stockpiling of manure needs to be at least 75 feet from the nearest wetlands. And I see that there are wetlands on that, right next to that property line, but it doesn't say kind of how far that is to the composting area.
Yeah, it's probably right on the edge of the 75. One of the things, in speaking with Wade today, and this actually, Blair had kind of had a similar question to me, and I figured it'd be worth addressing. I think since this plan was submitted, kind of Wade has thought more about the layout. There's actually been a desire potentially to move that composting area further planned south on the project, actually further away from that wetland, and maybe go more into a longitudinal. So this is designed that it's a kind of almost square, but it's designed to have a center aisle and there's bins on each side. And so you kind of move down that way. You can also do it and just do it in kind of bin by 8 bins next to each other and kind of a longer rectangular layout. So
You went north.
Plan south, but it would be north, yes, yeah, northeast on the site if you're going by cardinal direction. But yeah, that, and then in terms of the containment, per the state's guidance, and also just to kind of keep that manure by itself with the composting, you are supposed to do that on a hard surface, ideally like a concrete pad, such that when that bucket is turning it over or picking it up, over time, you're not just digging your way further into the ground and then you're really just mixing dirt and compost. So it would be a concrete pad with essentially a waste block to create those bins. Is probably likely what would be used, just kind of the simplest. So again, picture something that you would go to a landscape supply, you'd see 8 of those bins next to each other.
So then if it's a concrete pad, wouldn't that count then as a structure that would need to meet the 100-foot side setbacks for the commercial zone?
Yeah, so we looked at, and Blair, there was something Blair and I mentioned today, and honestly, I think I came out of that thinking. So I read the definition of the town structure, the definition of structure in the town zoning ordinance talks to, geez, I remember a lot of them. Anything from a building, a mobile home, a deck, underground utility tank, and that's because of, for example, a lot of utilities, anything underground that's utility is considered a structure, and that's actually via the New Hampshire Building Code, so it's kind of found its way into a lot of towns' definition of structure. It used to not be. But then if you go to the next, it doesn't speak to really like what you maybe call like a patio or concrete pad, but then part B of that definition talks about it shall not include a driveway, fence and other things. So in my mind, when I read that a driveway, I know we've talked about it, that there is some site plan regulations relative to like parking areas inside setbacks. That we would view this as kind of, the impervious generated from a driveway or parking area. But I think with the desire to move that away, I think we're gonna be pulling it out of the 100-foot setback. And we can certainly provide that on an updated plan to show, just so there's no question or need, I don't wanna delay the process and get an interpretation of a definition if we don't need to, so.
Seems like a bit of a stretch to call it not a structure, in my opinion. And so if you were able to move that within the 100-foot, outside of the 100-foot setback, that would certainly alleviate that question.
True.
Yep.
Just a clarification on the description here, under the definitions in the zoning, structure, that which is built or constructed with a fixed location on the ground or attached to something having a fixed location on the ground, whether installed on, above, or below the surface. Structure includes, but is not limited to, building, barn, swimming pool, manufactured home, mobile home, septic system, gas or liquid storage tank, well, deck, porch, balcony, breezeway, carport. But then the second part of it, structure shall not include boundary wall, fence, driveway, and in-kind replacement septic system. That's it. It does not preclude a concrete pad.
Yeah, so you could read it that way, but I'd argue that a driveway is something that's permanently established within the ground as well. So it's kind of using the same cross section.
Except that the use of the driveway is specifically to access the right of way as opposed to, that the use of the driveway has to go into the setbacks because of the fact of its use to get from the property over to the traveled way of the right of way. Whereas a concrete pad doesn't necessarily have anything to do with that.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think I don't have it in front of me, but I don't know if the definition of driveway, but this is where I think our intent is just to move it outside, so it's a non-issue with the interpretation. But our intent there was that the cross-section of a driveway versus the cross-section of a concrete pad is the same. We run into this a lot with definitions that they start to once you start to describe some things, it creates holes to say, well, what's to say that this doesn't fall under one? But I think our plan is to just pull it outside of the setbacks and make it a non-issue from that perspective.
And by going outside the 100-foot setback, you'd also be outside of the wetland setbacks as well?
Yes.
Yeah, wetland setback is 75 feet.
Okay.
And
I was just looking at how close it was to the, on the other side there, and
yeah,
just wondering about that distance, the chicken house to the wetlands. I know it's outside the 100-foot, but I didn't see the wetland setback on there.
Yeah, well, and I actually noticed that myself, so we'll make sure it's on there. It's probably right about the 100-foot mark, because that wetland boundary is right there, so we'll.
Other questions from the board?
You mentioned trucking the eggs. Is that a truck you have, or is that a truck that will come in and pick up the eggs? Your truck? Okay. That's good, that cuts down on the number of trucks.
So with it's good to know that the composting area isn't just on, bare ground. I'm wondering what the kind of drainage runoff situation is for that amount of compost, and how that's gonna be managed. Having it run off into other properties or into wetlands is not good. Can you speak to?
I'm certainly no compost expert, but I know just simply from some of the soil mechanics, a lot of times, something like a compost is a lot like what we see with a mulch pile. I'd expect that when it rains, yes, there's going to be runoff, but that also is a very absorptive. It absorbs the runoff, the rain that falls on it quite a bit, or what falls on the pad likely, depending on the way it's sloped. So yeah, we'd expect naturally there's going to be some runoff from it. The intent is that anywhere that is downstream of it is vegetated. The goal is to keep the site as vegetated as possible anyway, because the chickens, again, we want this to be kind of a free range site. But a lot of it, and we've probably all seen it too with a lot of mulch piles, if you go after a big rain, much of those piles actually dry out via evaporation, and not necessarily Yes, there's some drain through, but that's kind of our expectation. Again, we're using, much of this is done through, because it is an agricultural use, it's governed by the best measurement practice of the state. So along with the layout of the composting, there is some guidance. I know through other projects I've worked on, just thinking of agriculture in general, specifically with the USDA, one of their biggest goals is with agricultural uses is just keeping vegetated buffers to any of the activity that goes on a farm. And so that is certainly our goal here, is within and surrounding any activity is to just vegetate around these activities as much as possible. Ultimately, a vegetated buffer is your most robust stormwater or runoff control on most sites.
But there aren't any plans to have holding areas or anything to kind of slow down any of the runoff to make sure that it's kind of staying within vegetated areas?
No, and then the plan itself, we called out specifically what I'm calling kind of a meadow buffer area. The terminology needs to be changed slightly. The state just revised.
Is that the green band
Yeah,
up top? Okay.
yeah, and I think, and I kind of did, there was a note there that describes really the intent there is to create a dedicated, robust kind of buffer planting area along the perimeter. Between that and the buildings will also be vegetated. It's just if I put hatching all over this plan, I don't think anybody would read it. So it's more so to identify an area that we would work with Wade to ensure is kind of a thicker, the state has criteria on stormwater buffers and meadow buffers. They make recommendations of seed mixes and depth of that buffer. This, likely with the slope of this site, if you're at the minimum the steeper the slope, the longer the buffer path needs to be. The slope of this site is shallow enough that we would be in the 20 to 25 foot width that we wanna make sure that there's a good, well-established vegetated buffer. Outside of that, between that and the chicken houses, again, it will still be vegetated. It's just, you might expect it to look more like a low grass because of the activity from the farm. But that is, the meadow buffer is an established storm, again, we can update the terminology, but is an established treatment method under the state's new Stormwater Control Management Manual. Used to be called BMPs, but now it's SCMs.
You're not gonna have the concrete go to the middle with a big bucket in the middle and sell chicken tea?
I think Wade mentioned that too.
I already mentioned that, there is gonna be an angle to that, and when it comes down, I will be catching that, that's actually really expensive stuff. So I'm not looking to, let it run all over the place. That's money. I'm not looking, I've been accused of a lot of things today. So just to clear the air, I'm not putting 15,000 chickens in a little building. The chickens we do have, we've had for a couple of years. Most of them have names, okay? They're not being abused. The whole idea of building this building is to give them all more room, fence off the area, they're getting specialized vegetation that is for chickens.
Special seed mix for chickens.
Yeah, it helps keep them healthy.
Right.
I'm not looking to just, get a bunch of chickens, cut their heads off and, that's not what we're trying to do. We fell into the egg business, it kind of came on us fast. I didn't have time for all this, to go through all these meetings and get the building built. I'm trying to make a better life for the chickens. We're well under the state, there is no regulations for the amount of chickens I'm asking for. I'm here for a building. There is nobody here that can say you can't have that many chickens. According to the state, I can have up to 3,000 laying hens without any regulation. And there's no town ordinance in place saying I can't. So anything that tries to stop me from that, they gotta have a good reason, but I'm not being cruel to the animals. I've been accused of a lot of things. The next Tyson building's going up. I mean, come on, man. You know, I got 3 restaurants. It requires about 2,900 chickens to fulfill their orders. But it's a nice chunk of change. It takes the stress off me. Employees are hard to find these days. Chickens, listen, they lay their eggs every day and they ask for a meal. I gotta clean up the compost and I make more money off the compost than I spend on the food. It's a no-brainer. You know, there was some issues with the people next door. We both had issues on both sides. I've talked to them, I've worked on straightening things out. I met with Eversource today, I think I got a deal worked out. You know, to keep them in electricity and get what I need for my new building without anybody paying anything. And, you know, I'm putting a fence up. I moved the building the farthest I could move it away from them without encroaching on the other side. So you know, I got almost 200 feet between their property. And if you go 30 feet into my building, on the right-hand side where I only have 116 feet, it turns into about, I don't know, roughly 900 feet. Because I own right behind the right side at 455 feet, at 800, I can't remember exactly. I own all the way, you know, the backside of them, all the way back to Barrington. The compost, I decided that, okay, let's not make that an issue. If I put it behind this first building here, I got just a bunch of logs. I'll move them out of the way, I'll put the slab there. That's well within everything. There's no setbacks that can touch that. You know, there's a lot of people that think I'm here asking to start a business. I'm not. I got approved for the business 5 years ago. And it all falls under the law. Nobody can tell me, oh, you can run a business, but we're gonna tell you what you can sell, how you can sell. You approved me for it. I'm here for a building. And there's no regulations, you know, and I've been called names and everything else. Last meeting, that's not for these meetings. That's for a courtroom. And, you know, I have a feeling I'll probably end up seeing the inside of a courtroom with a few people. But I'm just asking for a building. I gotta make a living. I got over 3 million invested. I don't wanna fail. That's all. I wasn't even gonna talk, but I couldn't resist, I'm sorry.
And just so it's clear for everybody, the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture are the ones who set limits for how many egg-laying hens you can have. So that is literally not our jurisdiction at all. We have no control over that. We are here to approve buildings. The use of them after that is not our purview. Question that I have, egg washing, do you do that on site?
Yes.
What happens with the wash water? Is that?
Right now, it goes down my sink. I wash it by hand each egg. I do have an egg washing machine, but it's not set up, not hooked up. That'll go to its own separate thing, because I have to add water to the compost. And why not add the egg washing water to the compost? It kind of makes sense to me. I don't know at a chemical level. But I haven't got there yet. I do already own the egg washing machine.
Other questions from the board?
I have a question. In a bunch of years ago with Auburn, New Hampshire, there was just Kolka's farm. And there was a neighborhood adjacent where my uncle lived, and they had quite a lot of flies there, to the extent that the windows were black and like you couldn't see out the windows. It was pretty bad. What do you do for pest
Well,
control?
we came across that, but we also had 12 pigs. the pigs had gone. I raised them for an event up at Bike Week. Never do that again. But anyway, we've bought chemicals and stuff that I can spray in that are not harmful to the chickens to get rid of the fly situation. I mean, I don't think there's a farm out there that doesn't have flies. And, you know, I don't know. I didn't do this in between two other houses, you know what I'm saying? I'm on 31 acres of commercial property. And I've had the chickens for 2 years. The Right to Farm Act applies after 12 months. Under New Hampshire state law.
Well, there are probably some zoning ordinance that, you know, pertain to businesses emitting smoke and smell and noise and different things like that. And I don't know if, I have to look again whether ours pertains to insects perhaps, but it's a question because I
Well, no,
remember that
mean,
happening and.
You know, I'm gonna live there, right? So I would want to get the flies down as much as possible. I hear you there. But to say I can eliminate every bug, I'd like somebody to get rid of the mosquitoes.
Sure.
Okay, cause.
Mosquitoes don't come from chicken farming activities though, right? So there's a difference there.
Yeah.
The RSA, 674-32B does, the one that deals with expanding operations. It says that, it needs to comply with all federal and state laws, regulations, and rules, including agricultural best practices guidelines adopted by the Commissioner of the Department of Agriculture. Those best management practices for agricultural compost, the last one, 13, says that the best management practice is to control vectors, including flies and odors, to prevent public health problems and nuisance. So that does need to be something under consideration with an expanded operation.
Well, that's what we just, with the composting, that'll handle most of that. That compost, that gets covered. It's 7 rows. There's a schedule for flipping it. I don't know it off the top of my head, but there's a schedule for flipping it. And when you flip it, it's gonna smell for a little bit, but not that far away. And you cover it back up. After 6 to 10 weeks, that's compost. That no longer smells. Okay, and that's per the state literature.
Other questions?
Yeah. What utilities are you planning on having in the building, or is there going to be water to the building?
Yeah.
And is the well that's on site adequate for?
33 gallons a minute, probably the best water
Fair.
around.
And there'll be electricity too, so there'll obviously be for.
I was more concerned about if there are going to be septic facilities there and whether or not that'll be, cause I didn't see anything on the plans.
Yeah, we wouldn't expect the chicken house itself to need any sort of bathroom or sink. It would just be essentially a water spigot for watering the chickens. There is an existing septic for the existing building, at a minimum 3-bedroom system, so minimum size system for that, so that's really just for the employees of the business.
Reason I'm asking is because when you mentioned washing the eggs each day, that's a fairly significant amount of water. And you mentioned putting it back into the compost, but if that's going onto concrete, and you said you're going to be collecting the tea from that, I'm just wondering where that collection system is, cause I don't see anything on the plans for it.
It's about a 3-foot by 6-foot kind of table?
Yeah, it's
Because it recycles water and then you can drain off.
Yes, yes.
So the process itself isn't, a gallon in, a gallon out, it's it's a couple gallons in, and then there's certainly a based on usage, I drain so many off, and so it's not I guess a continuous usage of water during the process, so, yeah, I mean, likely this,
I'm
kinda
just a
looked it up.
little bit concerned, cause I know that chicken manure in particular is very, very high in nitrates. And just thinking about, okay, do we have any sort of nitrate plumes that we need to watch out for from this compost? I'm not super familiar with that aspect of it, the agricultural side. So, I'm just wondering what the expectation to deal with that is, cause I didn't see it on the plan.
Yeah, I think it was such a small area, I mean, I think the use, it's like the type of thing you could handle, like through one of those caged water jugs, such that he'll have to move it back to the compost with a tractor or something like that. So it's really just probably symbol wise, it's the same size of the symbol of that well or close to it on the plan. I mean, we can show it, it's, just really an accessory use to just like the compost, it's an accessory use under the RSA for the farming use, so I'm sure there's best manager practice related to that as well, but maybe we can try and get more information on that, but yeah.
There is a part 12 of the best management practices that says establish a practice of routine soil testing and record keeping for residual nutrients, consider nutrient credits from other sources, and make effective use of, don't know that word, Presididris nitrate N test, which is unique to corn crops. I don't think that applies. Sorry for slaughtering that word if anybody knows it. But it does say that routine soil testing and record keeping for residual nutrients is a best practice, just pointing that out.
Right, and that's under the state's BMP manual.
That's
Yeah.
right, the Department of Agriculture's BMP manual. Other questions from the board? Okay, it is time for public testimony. Taking a seat so that we can, well, actually, the first thing I'll be doing is reading out written testimony. And for the public testimony aspect, I see that there are a lot of people here in the audience. If you have written testimony, I'm going to limit everybody's testimony to 2 minutes at most. So if you have written testimony, submit it and the board will get copies. It'll be entered into the record for this case, but just hit the highlights. We don't have time for everybody to go through every single thing that they would want to. I wish we did, but it's just not practical. So I'm going to begin by reading out the received written testimony. I'll just start with the one that's first. This is from Jeff Hill, dated April 3rd, 2026. Good morning. Do site plans need to be approved before construction can begin? And there is an attached picture of a social media post from Precision Cut Lumber LLC with a description that says, so we are starting a new project, 56 feet by 100 feet chicken coop. I will try to show updates as much as possible, including pictures of what looks like construction in progress. And then that's followed by, thanks, have a great day, Jeff. Next one is from Jennifer Dubois, dated April 8th, 2026. To the members of the Nottingham Planning Board, while my property does not abut the property in question, I feel as though the building of the 2 large chicken houses could affect the entire surrounding neighborhood of Lincoln Drive, as well as others. I am unable to attend tonight's meeting at 6:30 p.m., so I am writing you in the hopes that my opposition will be considered along with those that will attend. I strongly oppose the proposed construction of the 2 poultry houses at 123 Old Turnpike Road in Nottingham. While agriculture is an important part of our economy, placing large-scale poultry operations in close proximity to homes raises serious concerns about public health, environmental impact, and overall quality of life. Poultry houses are known to produce strong odors, airborne pollutants, as well as rodents. These factors can negatively affect residents' daily lives and may pose risks to individuals with respiratory conditions. More importantly, it could also invite more predatory wildlife to surrounding neighborhoods, and that poses a substantial risk to homeowners with animals of their own. In addition, waste management associated with such operations increases the potential for water contamination, which could impact local wells, streams, and ecosystems. Property values are also likely to decline as a result of these poultry houses, placing an unfair burden on homeowners who chose this area for its residential character. Zoning decisions should reflect an approach that respects both agricultural needs and the rights of residents to a clean, safe, and peaceful environment. I urge decision makers to reconsider the construction of these poultry houses as they are too close to densely populated neighborhoods. Thank you, Jennifer Dubois. Next letter, from Hannah and David Long, 24 Revolutionary Lane. There's no date on this letter. Dear members of the Nottingham Planning Board, I am writing to express my opposition to the construction of 2 chicken houses in Nottingham as proposed by Precision Cut Lumber. While I understand the importance of supporting agricultural activity in our community, I have significant concerns about the potential impacts this project may have on the surrounding area and residents. First, the scale and intensity of this operation raise questions about environmental impact, including air quality, odor, noise, and potential water contamination. Developments of this nature can have lasting effects on nearby properties and natural resources, particularly if not carefully evaluated and managed. Additionally, there are concerns regarding increased traffic, including heavy truck activity, which may affect road safety. I am also concerned about the potential public health implications associated with poultry operations, particularly the routine use of antibiotics in livestock. Such practices can contribute to the development of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, which pose a broader risk to community health and the effectiveness of essential medical treatments. I respectfully urge the Planning Board to carefully consider the long-term implications of this project, including the compatibility with the surrounding area, environmental protections, and quality of life for residents and for the chickens. At a minimum, I encourage the board to require a thorough and transparent review process, including environmental, traffic, and public health impact assessments before moving forward. Thank you for your time and consideration of community input in this matter. Sincerely, Hannah and David Long. The next and looks like last written testimony it's actually a transcription of a voicemail. Hi, this is David George calling from 8 Revolutionary Lane in Nottingham. Sorry, this was received April 8th, 2026. Hi, this is David George calling from 8 Revolutionary Lane in Nottingham. My phone number, blah, blah, blah. The reason I'm calling is I just wanted to express my opposition to this plan. I don't want to get cut off on this message and make it too long. That could give you a whole list of reasons. You know, their plan is to expand to 15,000 and birds, even though they're probably not saying that, but they're saying it all over Facebook, and it looks like they've already even started construction. That site is already a mess. I can't imagine what it's going to be like with 15,000 birds, the smell, the flies, runoff from waste, all these things. It just has no business being there. And the impact on the direct abutters and the close proximity property owners is going to be tremendous. And I think if you look at that property, you'll see how they take care of things. This whole thing is just a bad idea and has no business being where they're proposing to put this. I hope you get this message. Feel free to read it into the minutes at tonight's meeting. Thank you very much. Bye.
When it was from the first people, it may have been clipped.
Okay, thank you. No, this was not my, so this is also from Jeff Hill dated March 26, 2026. Hello, how many chickens are going to be raised in each of the proposed structures? I couldn't find that info in any of the documents. Thanks, have a great day. Okay, that is the written testimony for this case. I am now going to open up the public testimony at 8:28. We'll start with any testimony speaking in favor of this application. Is there anybody here to speak in favor of this application? All right. Anybody here to speak neither in favor nor in opposition to this application? Yes.
I just have a question.
Could you come and please state your name and address?
You have to make me do that?
Yeah, it's part of the procedure. Sorry.
Animal Control Officer, Nottingham. How are you? Melissa Bacon. The only question I have, I've had a couple opportunities to go over there for discrepancies on the property line. So I talked to Dale and we were working back and forth, so I just wanna make sure that that's been cleared up. As
Can you
far as
explain more what you mean by property
Well,
line issues?
custom welding, I can't remember her name, I apologize. It was, he said, she said, the line was not, he was saying that he owned a portion and they, like the line wasn't where it was supposed to be.
Oh, like a location of a property line issue?
So I put it to Dale and then was waiting to hear back from him and so it was never, so that's my only concern.
Gotcha. So
is to
that's
make
not
sure-
a purview of this
No,
board, that would
and-
be a deed
well, when I got
issue
called
and
out there, it was the birds, the fowl were going over to their property and that was his property, and so I just wanna know that that's been cleared up.
So the issue is that chickens from this property were going into
Right, and
adjacent
doing
properties.
damage over there, and so
Thank you.
I haven't heard back from Dale to make sure that that's been all cleared up.
Thank you.
Just so I don't have to,
What kind of damage were they doing? You said damage, so just.
well, she had said that they were going on the vehicles that were parked in the parking lot, yeah. But it was never proven that, so it was, again, he said, she said, and so I left it as far as Dale was gonna look into it and finalize, cause there was an electric pole that was on their property. Oh, see, oh,
You can
see?
submit
Yeah, I've got
pictures to the
property.
board, but, you know,
And they're relevant to what she's speaking about.
So,
okay.
so
Well,
no,
also, I'm limiting to 2 minutes per
Sure,
person,
yeah.
and we're pretty much up, so.
Okay, bye.
Thank you. We can discuss after the public comment, Chris. So now those speaking in opposition, if anybody would like to come forward,
I will.
I see a hand up there.
Thank you. Adrian Beauty.
Oh, I wanted to say that.
169 Mitchell, Nottingham.
So again, I'm
3,000
limiting to 2 minutes, just so you know, if I cut you off, it's nothing personal.
3,000 chickens, that's gonna be 400,000 pounds. Rain runoff from those roofs and those buildings, when it rains, that's gonna go either Mendham Pond or Little River to Nottingham Lake. I don't care what you're doing, when it's raining heavy, that's gonna be a lot of water. 15,000 chickens are gonna make 2 million pounds. You're gonna have all those trucks going in and out, 2 million pounds, gonna be at least 40 trucks going in and out. Route 4 has 10,000 vehicles running daily. That's a start. I'll let somebody else have some time.
Thank you.
Pounds of what?
Next,
Pounds of chicken. Just the poop.
Alright, just the manure.
Before it's
Chicken litter.
Gotcha.
Hi, Deborah Nelson, 68 Priest Road. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you, and I'll cut right to the chase. I had all these things prepared. And I applaud our fellow neighbors and residents of Nottingham of hitting on like 90% of the issues I've been researching ever since Friday night when I learned about this proposal and was extremely concerned. The only things I have not yet heard anything about light pollution. What is the plan? Will there be lights outside? Will they be 24/7? Because light pollution brings with it its own risks to people, disrupting sleeps, to nocturnal animals, to insects, to migrating birds. So there's that whole issue. And noise. Chickens make a lot of noise, and will there be roosters who make even more noise? And I learned, because I did not know this, that roosters don't just crow at 8 o'clock in the morning to wake you up. They could crow at 3 o'clock in the morning. So, what are the plans to deal with the noise? But mostly, I'm just gonna underscore and agree with everybody who's sent you testimony. This is a beautiful town to live in. Why would we ever consider risking having pollution that can't necessarily be controlled? You can't stop the rain from washing poop, into watershed areas. And especially, now I'm happy to hear, because one of my concerns was, what is the care of these chickens? Were they gonna be in cages like those horrific animal abuse things we see? And I'm free range, but with free range, then they're walking all over the place pooping. So it's easy to pick up the poop in the houses to make your manure.
I'm gonna ask that you don't address the
Oh, I'm
applicant,
sorry.
address me when you're
Thank you,
talking,
sorry
please.
about that, yeah. So what is the plan how do you collect manure from free-range chickens walking all over large areas and make manure out of it? And I just wanted to mention to the board, I have research on these matters, all the different kinds of pollution, of health hazards to people, and all the disruptions in communities, the noise, the smell, the lights, and so I would be happy to submit that to the board.
Please do.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Others wishing to speak? You up front?
Jim Frazier, 14 Patriots Lane. It's right across the road. I have environmental impact already at my house. I have rats coming, never had them before, last couple of years. I have predators, all sorts of sizes that we never had before, and the numbers have quadrupled in the last few years. Come out of nowhere. I have 0 wild turkeys around me because of the predators. I used to have 30 to 50 birds going through our subdivision. I'm lucky to see any now in the last couple of years. I couldn't figure out why, but now I'm kind of figuring it out. I shouldn't have rats in my residential house. I don't have anything outside for them, so I don't like seeing this happen so close to the residential neighborhood. And our houses have quadrupled in value according to the town. All these concerns were brought up in Maryland a couple of years back when I was stationed down there. Oh, the runoff won't have any impact or anything. Well, guess what? They had a hysteria outbreak because of the runoff from the chickens. And going from a chicken house to a chicken corporation is a big deal. The more runoff you have, the more problems you're gonna have. They said, oh, it won't affect the people. It did start affecting the people. The whole Chesapeake Bay was affected. People were eating those fish and they were getting lesions themselves. So saying there's no impact, there is. And if the stuff's gonna come off the buildings and go into the groundwater, we're all right next to it. Okay, it's gonna be effective. That's why we didn't allow the water plant right down the street, because it's gonna have an impact on our aquifer. So everything that comes off that property, outside of that property, is now our problem. See what I'm saying? And I don't think that's right.
Thank you for your testimony.
Hey, how are you, Chairman? Thank you. My name is Patrick Kilbreth, live at 18 Patriots Lane, Nottingham, New Hampshire. Jim's a neighbor. So listen, real quick, I know we only have a couple minutes, but I just want to give a quick rundown of 1961, Jack D. Coster started an egg farm in Turner, Maine. My dad was born and raised in Turner, Maine. My grandmother, born and raised, passed away in Turner, Maine. My cousins, everyone lives in Turner. I've been there for years, back and forth. 1961, he started with 250 chickens. By 2 years later, he was up to 5,000. 2 years after that, 25,000 chickens. D. Coster Egg Farm decimated that town. The stench, the sickness, it causes pneumonia. There's a lot of ammonia that's released from the feces. The lung infections that you can get from this stuff, and the smell is just not going to affect the neighborhood, okay? If you guys can research this, I don't know if you have, this can go 10, 15, 20 miles in the air. The particulates from the feces of the chicken, when it gets real windy and it gets stirred up, it gets in the atmosphere and it goes throughout the town. We have a school that's, I mean, as a bird flies, probably 3 miles away.
It is 3 miles away.
Okay, so it's 3 miles away. Okay, so we got, children are very at risk for asthma, for childhood asthma, for pneumonia, and heaven forbid, for any kind of, other major lung infections. I mean, you got influenzas and all kinds of stuff that comes with this, okay? So this gentleman's gonna start, he says he's gonna live there. Yes, Jack D. Coster lived on his farm to start, okay? 3 to 4 years later, he's gone. And now it's just a big conglomerate, okay, with the town, like Jim said, to pick up the pieces, all right? There's just a, there's.
Cut it there. That's a 2-minute.
Okay, well, real quick, these guys made a lot of excuses. Chairman, you asked a lot of things.
I've got to
and
cut
they-
you
and
off.
they couldn't-
I'm sorry.
And they made a lot of excuses.
We've
They
got to
couldn't
move it
answer.
along.
Time. I yield my time. Okay, that's great. So you asked a lot of questions, which I do appreciate, okay? And I'm gonna just, I just wrote down some notes as to the responses, okay? The goal is, okay, this is a major thing, okay, you started with the concrete where they were gonna put the feces down, okay? They say, oh, we're gonna flip it, or we're gonna do this, they don't really have a plan, okay? Got really specific on the runoff of the feces, and these guys are saying the goal is, we anticipate, I'm not an expert, there will be some runoff, we'll work with it as much as possible. Quote unquote, no plans. Look at, I don't know if you guys are taking, he said, no plans. Okay, the intent. These aren't words, guys, of a well-prepared egg farmer or chicken farmer who's opening a business. You know, he needs to have, these guys don't have their ducks in a row, number one. Number two, these guys haven't even, we have been established in this area, the neighbors, the neighborhoods, the school, the community. We didn't decide to move to an egg farm. We didn't decide to move to a chicken farm. They just decided to come here and open up a chicken farm. Two completely different things. Out west, they open up these chicken farms in the middle of nowhere. It's different if, okay, you wanna make a neighborhood next to a chicken farm. And if you decide to move there, okay, well, that's a completely different story. This is just unacceptable, guys. I mean, the ramifications this is gonna have on the public, the health, the kids, the property values, it's in the RSA. You guys, I know you have a hard job to do, and I really appreciate you guys spending your weekdays, time after time doing this. But you really need to think long and hard about this, because I adamantly oppose this. I really do. Thank you for your time, guys. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Please don't applause after testimony. Anybody else? Yep.
Faith Levesque, 1 Tremblay Drive. I believe I heard him say that there was no town ordinance regarding this plan. So I wanted to have that addressed as far as town ordinance. I'm also wondering if the Conservation Commission has been pulled into this discussion with the wetlands so close by to this proposed site in terms of the water. I was curious as to how many chickens there are now and what it would increase to with the first building, potentially the second building. And I also am afraid of bear, coyote, fox, raccoon. We have that problem now with individual chickens in backyards. This is only going to increase.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak? Yep.
Hi. Cami Leshner, 31 North River Lake Road. I'm gonna echo some of the things. I'm gonna try to go fast and maybe follow up with a written. My first question is, this is a commercial application, so we're hearing a lot of talk about why it's an automatic win, but it's unclear to me, at least, how, if it's submitted as a commercial application, how it's a clear permitted use as an agricultural business. But the biggest picture problem for me is there's too many, the application is too vague, there's too many unknowns and too many things that are not addressed. It's presented as an approval of structures, but what kind of structures? You guys don't know anything about the structures, as far as I can tell. With respect to the manure question, and when it comes to chickens, understanding the type of flooring that's used in the chicken houses is the most important question in addressing what type of composting is needed to make sure that we're mitigating against the environmental, public health concerns, pest concerns that will arise. They will certainly arise with manure and composting. The ultimate best practice in addressing waste and composting is actually to do it in an enclosed building. That is the best way to do to handle and address all of the potential things. And all the issues that everyone's raised tonight, odor, flies, runoff, all of those things can be mitigated against, but you haven't been presented with a plan that addresses any of those things. You can have chicken houses with ventilation systems that really address odor and air quality, as just one example. Highly pathogenic avian influenza, it's an issue. There's been, I'm gonna forget the number, but somewhere around 80 detections in the United States this month, and this is a slow time of year for it. there's airborne risk. There are known, it's known to travel at least 5 to 10 miles. There are known human infections in this country of people that had no contact with any animals. It is believed that that came from being acquired in the air. We have a
I've gotta cut
public
you off
school
there.
3 miles away and a daycare right next door off of Glen Line.
Thank you. Others wishing to speak?
Hello, I'm Joe Lavecchio, 211 Old Turnpike. I probably won't be popular with this, but I do believe landowners should have some ability to use their land as they'd like. But I'd like the board to consider the density of chickens per acre. I keep hearing about these 31 acres. I believe I heard 3,000 chickens. If not currently, that's the plan. That's a density of approaching almost 100 chickens per acre. If a second building is built, that would double the density. You know, you have to think about that. Plus, I did spend a decade in Georgia. We went by big industrial chicken farms. And the enclosed building solution is probably not that good because the smell and stench coming off those fanned buildings, you just wouldn't believe. So the free range chickens is probably a better idea. But I guess I don't see, one last thing the board should consider is the vegetative buffer. Chickens, we have chickens, they'll eat everything, they'll clear cut the grass. What part of the buffer is gonna be fenced so the chickens cannot enter that buffer, so it's truly a buffer, especially in the winter when the ground's frozen. Runoff's gonna go right there, so that's it.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak? Yep.
Brian Arcuri, 22 Revolutionary Lane. I have the same concerns as other people here, the smell, but those have already been addressed. On the administrative side, let's talk about being a good neighbor. The applicant has already proven that with the chickens that he has, he's not a great neighbor to the people that are next to him. Their animal control called, I mean, that's a big red flag. Additionally, his current business is not in good standing with the state of New Hampshire. And the biggest issue I have is the water runoff, the lack of plan. Right, yeah, these are free range or in a building, it doesn't matter. There's no plan, like there's no fence. We've already talked about the L-shaped fence that doesn't go around the whole property. How are we gonna keep these things in? Let's just start with that. And then we'll talk about, you know, the lack of proper control. And others have said you can have mitigation for all these issues, but there's no plan. It's just, we're gonna throw them in and hope everything works out. One last thing, and it was addressed earlier in an email that was sent on April 6th or April 3rd. The applicant is requesting permission to build a building. As I understand it, that building is already being built or construction has already started. If we can get some confirmation on that, seems kind of chicken before the egg. And that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak?
Hi, Chris Lovecchio, 211 Old Turnpike Road. Mine is more a question.
Could you direct your
I'm sorry, I
testimony to me,
apologize.
please?
My question is, it isn't so much negative as much as I'm looking for how he's looking to address the water issue. Obviously, NPS is a big concern. It has been beaten to the pulp. That's not my question. My question is, how much water in terms of gallons is he looking to be pulling to water the chickens? For example, if I have 20 birds, I'm going through at least 3 to 4 plus gallons a day for those 20. So how many how many will be pulled from the Kona Depression of that area to feed and supply that many chickens? I understand he said he has a really good well at 33 GPM, but has he factored in how much he's actually going to need for each of these birds? And then additionally,
I don't wash mine, I keep the Bloom on. I understand when you do sell them, you do have to wash them for sanitation reasons, it makes sense. But I've never seen an egg washer. So like I said, along the same lines, my question is, how many gallons of water will that use to service the number of birds and eggs that he's gonna need to fulfill these orders? And when you combine those two water quantities, roughly what are we looking at pulling from the aquifer in that area? Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak?
Yeah, Tim Bruno, 54 Canard Road, town. I have a bittersweet thing. One part of me says that he has the right to do it because he owns the land. Another part of me says, if it isn't helpful for everybody, he shouldn't do it. I grew up in Epping. There was a chicken farm down the road. It brought in a lot of predators, fisher cats, bobcats, coyotes. They were just coming around then. But if you walked out in the woods there, all you saw was feathers. Because let's face facts, you're gonna have dead chickens every day. What's the plan for getting rid of the dead chickens? You're just gonna throw them in the manure pile so the predators can come in and get them and spread them around? Chickens are very cannibalistic. They do pick on one another. You know, what are you gonna do when you got 100 different people claiming that their property values just went down? They want an abatement on their taxes. You know, that's what's gonna happen. It's what happened where I lived and grew up in Epping. My parents bought a nice house in '63. I sold it last year. We could barely get rid of it because of the location it was in. It was New England Dragway one side, Star Speedway on the other side. A town approved chemical dump in the backyard and Sig Arms across the street. I'm not saying this is that bad, but it's the start. You know, what can I say? Look out what you're gonna get for the future, you know, I'm kinda greedy. I got 2 grandchildren in that area. I don't want them the air quality to go bad or anything like that. That's all I got to say.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak?
Andrew Turco, 28 Revolutionary Lane. I just have a couple of questions that I want to the board to consider. Is the current zoning commercial, industrial, or agricultural? And if it's commercial industrial, of which that is my understanding, why is agricultural allowed? So that's one question. And assuming that this process moves forward, will the board require a professional impact study to be done to meet the RSA concerns? I think that's pretty important. What is the exact makeup of the building? Is it on a slab? Is it your traditional industrial chicken coop building with big fans on both ends? I don't know what it's gonna be. And to reiterate what Mr. Kilbreth said, it's one thing to move into a community that a chicken farm already exists on, because we know what we're getting. We're gonna, you know, hey, we're gonna live next to this chicken farm because the houses are cheap, we can deal with the smell. But we didn't. A chicken farm is being built amongst our houses. So I want the board to really consider that as a impact, so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak? Yep.
My name's Sean Parento. I own Custom Welding and Fabrication, which is right next door. And I'm also the trustee for Pat Deb LLC, which owns the land. And I have a lot of concerns, health concerns for my employees and myself. Last year, the smell was horrendous. I don't know how many birdies he had then, but if it gets more than that, I can't imagine what it's gonna be like. And the flies that we had last year, we had to put fly traps all over the shop. And they were like, within 2 days, they were all covered. It was nasty. That's all I gotta say. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Brandon Fox, 19 Robin Hood Drive. I heard it was mentioned the concern of best practices and for farming and manure and runoff. I'd be interested to see if those best practices are being met currently with the work that he's already doing. And then understood if he's doing the testing and records for the runoff as required in adjacent to the buffer areas, because I don't believe there's fencing to prevent free range chickens from eating the vegetation in buffer areas or creating manure there. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
I'm Robin Marshall. I live at 189 Old Turnpike Road, just around the corner from this proposed place. I dealt with the water company that was coming in. I lived there at the time, but water doesn't smell like chickens do. And I wondered, when someone had brought up about the turkeys, I wondered why I had this whole flock of turkeys that I'd never seen turkeys in my yard. But it seems like I'm further, like they're like 123, I'm 189. I thought it very unusual that all these turkeys were in my yard, so I think they're coming further down, they're avoiding that area. I don't currently know how many chickens you have, I don't smell them, I don't hear them. But just the 12 chickens that my neighbor had, they do those roosters, and whatever time of day, they just decide to yeah, they're annoying, and I can't imagine 15,000 chickens with Lincoln Drive and Revolutionary. That would be a nightmare to just having my neighbor who has just a few. I couldn't even imagine, so not that I have anything against chickens, but just maybe at a much smaller scale would be more appropriate for that area. There's too many close residential to deal. So I just suggest to the board that you really think about these people that live. I don't know if any of you live close to that, but I wouldn't. And I could submit the photo for it. And I have 2 small dogs. I worry about, the coyotes. There are already some in that area, but I could just imagine how they would be way more threats to our small little pets that go out. So.
Thank you for your testimony. Others wishing to speak? Going once, going twice. All right, I will close the public hearing at 8:57. Thank you to everybody who provided their input. Again, if you do have written testimony, please submit it to the land use coordinator and it will be given to the board for our consideration as well.
I had one question, okay? It's gotta be said.
Can you come up again? I'll
Jim
allow just
Fraser,
this one,
14
but
Patriots Lane. I just wonder how this concept was even thought about to come in existence and how this got started, because none of us knew about this. It was already starting to be conceptualized and being worked on. What is going on in this town that the residents that live around in town don't know about this before it's even conceptualized? I understand people have the right to build on the land, but when you go from a simple plan to a corporation style setting over so many birds, how come we didn't know about this before this? I mean, I served 26 years in the military. I looked at property all in this region for almost 2 years. And then I finally came to this town based on the environment we are currently in. Okay? If I'd ever known that this town was even thinking about stuff like this, I would have gone somewhere else. That's something you guys gotta think about when we start doing these things in this town. Just FYI.
all right, thank you. All right, public testimony is closed at 8:58. I'm gonna ask the applicants to come back to the board.
Just, we're getting up on 9.
Yeah, right.
Maybe let them respond and then.
Yep, and then we'll
decide what you guys want to do.
very likely need to continue this case, just so everybody's. All right, okay.
Yeah,
So there's a lot there. I don't know if the board, if there's something you want us to identify tonight, if it's substantial enough, I think, we agree that I think a continuance is in order, just to make sure we properly address. I don't know if the board wants anything addressed tonight in the meeting, or if we wanna identify of the comments, if there's kind of some general themes.
I think if there's, you've heard a lot of themes, if there's some things you can offer up so people don't have to walk away with unanswered.
Sure.
They might not all get answered, but if you could.
Yeah, let me go through, I tried to write as fast as I could. If I don't touch upon some of the comments, it's something that maybe we could easily, I just think I can easily address on the plan, or, so don't think that I'm skipping over the comments, I'm just trying, maybe some that maybe are shared themes. Or at least I think that deserve discussion with the board here. I'll say that kind of the recurring thing with some of the operations of the farm, or the poultry business, and why it's, well, actually, that's probably the most important thing. One of the most recent ones was like how it's permitted. And I know we talked about that with the board on the conceptual, is that, yes, this is dual zone property. The portion of the property that we're looking to utilize is the commercial industrial zone, which is 1,000 feet off of Route 4. So, you know, any of the residential along Route 4, we all know is kind of, there's a mix of residential and commercial along Route 4. It's 1,000-foot offset, doesn't follow property lines. Under the state RSA 2134, I think I said it was, that governs that if a town does not regulate the agricultural use specifically within that zone, then it is therefore permitted. And I can kind of provide, I did a summary of that initially, but I can certainly cite the 2134. But the town's code is a permissive ordinance, so it lists kind of a select number of uses that are permitted. And so the way that the RSA reads, obviously, so one of those is, you know, commercial agriculture or agriculture in general is not listed under the commercial industrial zone as a permitted use, but under state RSA, because it's not addressed, it is therefore an allowed use. And certainly, I think it probably warrants that I submit something to the board that can obviously be put into the public record that I can cite from the RSA 2134.
If it's permissive and it doesn't list it, how does that imply that it's allowed? Because it is listed in the res ag district, so the town doesn't seem to be silent on the use. It does seem to be permitting it in a district.
Yeah.
Didn't you approve my business almost 5 years ago, which is an agricultural business? And sawmilling falls under a farm by the state of New Hampshire laws.
Fine, this is where I just, again, we're talking state RSA's, so I wanna make sure I get the reference right. Here we go.
432-33.
What was your number?
Right to farm law.
I'm seeing it as RSA 674-32A.
That's where I just, yeah.
Okay.
So the language, and we can, again, and maybe, again, if this is something, generally interpretations of state RSA's are hard to, I don't think anybody wants to make a definitive decision in a meeting. If we have staff that maybe needs to review it. But the language of 674-32A, so this is the presumption section of the local land use planning regulatory powers, agricultural uses of land. Whenever agricultural operations or activities as defined under RSA 2134, so that defines what qualifies as a farm and its accessory activities, are not explicitly addressed with respect to any zoning district or location, such operations or activities shall be deemed to be permitted there or as either a primary or accessory use. So long as
we have it in the residential agricultural district, not in the commercial.
Correct, but we are, so you have to look at the zoning district that we're under. So this land
Which is
under
commercial, which does not have it under the permitted uses.
are not explicitly addressed with respect. So like we discussed this in the first meeting.
To any zoning district. It is addressed in the other districts, i.e. if it is not included as part of this.
Yeah, and this is where I think, to be honest, we're gonna have to get maybe an interpretation, because when this is a state RSA, every town uses different terminology for their district terminology. To any district is, in our opinion, I've run this in the past with projects. Any district is the state's way of saying, we know everybody calls districts the same way. Any district is implying any name that you give a district, commercial, residential, industrial, mixed use. a town central business. The state RSA's purposely have to be vague at times that they can't speak to, like, so to say that if you had we have a town central district essentially, you would a lot of times you'll find restrictions in dense zones. Maine is a big one where they limit how many chickens you can have. But they don't then regulate outside of that and say, hey, in the residential agricultural portion, you have that same restriction. So this is the interpretation that we've made, and I think it's just gonna be the type of thing that if we need to get feedback on that, then we can. But our interpretation and what we presented to the board and the conceptual, and the reason we didn't go for any zoning relief on this use is that we qualified under the 674-32A for the farm use. So that's why I don't know if we're gonna agree on it tonight, and if we need to go to that next step, then we will. I'll put that as an action item.
You know, I don't need to answer tonight, but I do wanna hear about, mitigation of some of the concerns around, chickens leaving the site and fencing and predators coming onto the site.
Okay, we already said that, we're putting up fences, they will not get over to their property again. I addressed that last Friday with them, as well as some other issues I had. Like the electric pole that's being used by them, that is clearly mine. It was sold to me, it's part of my property, it's 18 feet of mine. I'm trying to make it, and I think I got it worked out so everyone's happy. I'm not trying to be the troublemaker here, so they don't get interrupted their service, because that's legally my pole. I don't wanna see them pay money to get service, so I had Eversource come out today and let them know, where they're in the wrong. There's no easement. They've basically illegally been using my land to provide service to a customer. I'm pretty sure Eversource is gonna put in an additional pole and put me electricity right over to the building to make up for that. So I'm trying to work out some of the problems. We did talk last Friday. I asked that all the cars that were backing up over the swale, which was clearly on my property, and this has all been established when I originally came here, the property lines. There's no question, there's no he said, she said, it's here. We addressed that. I did put up a small fence. The other part of the fence came in today. I didn't have a chance to put it up. I'm doing everything I can to rectify that situation. And I actually, where we were gonna put the building was kinda like 100 foot off the property line on that side. I decided, okay, they don't like the chickens. I'm gonna go 200 feet from their property line. And I talked to the other neighbor, he don't care. You can put it on the property line, wait, I didn't even know you had them. I'm 116 feet off that line and a little under 200 feet on the other side to try and pull the chickens away as best I can. I'm not here to rub anything in anybody's face. I'll put a fence up, I said as things progress over the next year, and I'll put an 8-foot fence up, is my intention. To keep animals away from my chickens, to keep my chickens away from other people. There's only so much I can do. And just to clarify, when we moved in, there was a rat issue there. I can show you receipts, I've been buying rat poison since day one, and I didn't have any chickens, I had logs. We live near water. Rats are everywhere. I do the best I can to make sure I got traps up. Not traps, but bait houses that my chickens can't get into. So I try and take care of that problem like every other farm does. I'm trying to rattle through all these things.
No, I think, I'm just trying to go back, I was just
Site
scanning.
construction activities, are those
All I
ongoing?
did was I had 4 containers delivered, okay? And I put them in place to see how it looks. I'm doing this by myself, so
The photographs that were included from the social media post showed footings or
Concrete posts.
concrete posts.
yeah, but they're not, nothing's attached to them.
Sonotubes.
Okay.
They're just sonotubes, you know, that they're sitting on. I was trying to square them up, you know, but nothing's built, no walls, no floors.
And that activity is not
Yeah, I
going right
did what I
now.
needed to do, and I've been waiting for this hearing. I was just trying to get an idea and see how the fencing's gonna work. I'm more of a visual person, you know what I mean? But I didn't build nothing, nothing's permanent. I can pull those sonotubes out with my excavator. But I didn't think I needed permits to put containers on my property.
So I think we addressed the chickens passing over, but there was, I think, another thing in your question.
Sorry?
There was another thing in your question that we talked about, he talked about the chickens passing over the property line.
Yeah, and predators getting onto the site.
Yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that, cause it's
Yeah.
just by the nature of the use, I guess. But I just sort of scanned through, there was a question about light pollution, I mean, that's certainly something under site plan review. There's no plan for any additional like site lighting. I think it's safe to say there maybe would be a door entry light, you know, for him to check on the chickens at night, but that needs to stay dark or else they don't sleep. So there's no need for exterior lighting around that building for like night operations or anything. I'm gonna come back to a couple as well.
One thing, are there any, will there be any slaughtering or processing of, I think we talked about this in the.
Yeah, no, I actually prefer not to get involved with that. If there's any slaughtering or anything, it would go to a facility that is big enough to have the government there. And they put the USDA stamp and it comes back to me and goes in a cooler. But I haven't got there yet. You know, and I'm not sure that I'd really want to because like I said, most of these chickens got names. You know, there was a need that arose kind of accidentally a couple of years ago for eggs. Everyone loved them. It kind of grew. I got a chance to make some decent money. It's well within the state regulations of not having any regulations. Where the state feels is 2,500, 3,000 laying hens isn't enough to create a problem. You know, I mean, you talk about disease and this and that, but you know, the bird flu can be spread around by one bird. So everyone in town that owns a chicken should be getting rid of them, if that's the case. If we're gonna set that precedence, you know, they,
I think
yeah.
a couple of things more on the technical side, you know, I talked about it briefly in the beginning, the runoff concerns, I mean. I think with the establishment of the vegetated buffer, it's in line with a state using a state recommended stormwater control measure. Which is a vegetated buffer, I did, you know, the comment about like, how do you protect it? I think we'd be amenable to like, if there's an area that we're defining as a buffer for the purpose of that filtering. Then I think we accept that we would have to protect that and the fence line or such would have to adhere to that. You know, and so that we feel that we can adequately use state guidance to meet the runoff concerns. You know, there was a couple questions about kind of the, you know, the concreteness of some of our responses asked about compost. Some of this is, and again, this would kind of go back to the question about the use, but as a whole, the use and the operation of the farm is really under the purview of the state, which is why, again, the operation of a farm is not my expertise. That is governed by the New Hampshire Department of Agriculture. And likely isn't items that would go on the plan because it's not really the operation of that farm and not the purview of the board under the RSA, again, if we hopefully agree on that. So I'm not purposely being vague on how do you operate or what is the specifics of the compost and the step-by-step, it's just trying to provide as much background as we can. Understanding that ultimately it falls back on a separate jurisdiction to oversee that part of the operation. There's one more start here?
A lot of water questions, but I think that'll be.
I think it's just,
There's one I can answer. She asked, right now, we don't have running water going to the chickens. We do have. Okay, there's about 1,600 chickens. Okay, they go through 255-gallon drums every 3 days. And it goes to a little feeder. So if that gives you an idea, the washer fills up and it just recycles that water. I'd be lying if I told you how they work, but yeah, it goes into a big tub and that shoots it through the jets. And then it comes through and it gets air dried and then it gets a sterilized sanitizer on it and then it rolls through a light that checks it and then it weighs it and puts it into the different size eggs. And that's it. And then at the end of the day, you drain it out. It's probably 10, 15 gallons of water. Okay. And that's a guess.
One of the things that we talked about here was potential relocation of the compost area, showing of an enclosed fence area. Do you feel like it was to get inside of the 100-foot buffer and it was get 100-foot setback into get outside of the 75-foot wetland setback? That was, what was the impetus for this? Do you feel like these plan changes could be made before a subsequent meeting?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously it's a lot that we wanna make sure we kind of address it, take some time to digest.
Okay.
There's enough here tonight. Again, there was a lot of repeated themes, and yeah, so I just wanna make sure ultimately what the board, I mean, certainly, again, there is still some comments in here that will kind of, if they're general, we'll kind of combine them to say, here's a bullet point, here's a response, and that'll be part of our resubmission to the board.
Okay.
So it'd be on the website. I guess the only question I have is if there's a slight disagreement in the interpretation of 674-32A and its applicability to the zoning. In the past, that would require town council to, I think, like we'd have to agree to cover that cost, but town council, I think, has to, I mean, we can submit something, but you're gonna still have to have town council give the feedback anyway, so that's the only thing I think, I'm trying to think timing wise, and I've been on this board, I think it could take some time to get those feedbacks. So that's the only thing on the board side of, everything else I can address myself, that's something that's an external item that.
One comment that was made, are you planning on submitting either structural or architectural drawings?
We do have some, I think, because you're doing it yourself, you've kind of self-engineered some trusses, they would be reviewed by a structural as part of the manufacturer. We do have some general roof truss plans, that show how they would lie on top of the storage containers. So we could do that.
I got a breakdown of elevations. They're not like
Yeah, they're
a
not-
15-page thing, but it's a chicken coop. Okay,
I'm just
but the
curious because
trusses,
of
which
the
is
fact
the
that-
serious part of the whole building, because the 4 steel 40-foot containers are the structure of the walls.
Yep.
Okay, the trusses are engineered trusses, they'll be coming in. I've already got plans sent to me of them.
So they've been reviewed by an engineer, the
Yeah,
truss
they developed
manufacturer, but, yeah, we can submit those, and they do show the relative, like, I guess, I think they detail out how they essentially are structurally tied to the containers, making that a structure, so we can provide that.
You ever considered enclosing the manure area?
Would you like a
wouldn't- I
three-sided like a three-sided cover?
I mean, the reason I'm thinking, you're looking for 2 buildings, right?
Yeah.
You could use one of them for enclosing the manure area, and then you probably could still let the chickens use that area too at the same time, you're only going
Yeah,
into
but
the
being
toss.
honest, I haven't got a problem doing that, but not at first.
Yeah.
I've done nothing but spend money.
Yeah.
A large sum of it, that would choke most people. this first building is gonna help me clean up a lot of things. That's why I put containers on all four corners, to kinda itemize everything. I got 253 footers that I wanna get where the rental containers have been, so I can clean, they got all shelves. There's a lot of things I'm doing but I can't do it all at once,
I get that.
you know, but yeah, I
How
haven't
many chickens
gotten,
do you have right now?
well, 1,600.
1,600? You're looking to just, not even quite double it?
No, I wanna stay,
You must be under the state threshold.
yeah, I even turned down, I had 11 restaurants that wanna use me for eggs. I stopped at 3. Because 3 gives me a pretty decent income. I got sick last year and couldn't cut wood, I couldn't move my hands.
Yeah.
If that happens again, what do? This egg thing came up, I can make $6,200 a week with under 3,000 chickens.
Yep.
That to me sounds pretty good, even if my hands don't work, I can get an automatic egg collection machine. So that's why I kinda looked into this a little bit. And, you know, I did mention on my Facebook once about 15,000 chickens. That property is not the place for it. And that wasn't what I
Yeah,
was
but
talking
see,
about.
I don't know how you, that would be a lot.
No, that wasn't what I was talking about, but I don't like to type, so I was very vague.
Yeah, the reason I ask this is because, I mean, just of how many residents are very concerned, and they're legitimate concerns too. I mean, I am huge on farmers. I mean, take care of the farmer. We're all eating the chicken, we're all eating the eggs. But growing too big, I think you're just gonna end up.
There's no
you end up
employees
hating your
around
life.
here to get that big, first of all. There really isn't.
Maybe just,
If I was to get bigger, I'd be buying a much larger property, which over the next 10 years, I'll be buying 1,000 acres. I already know that, set in my life plan, and I'll be doing that.
Yep.
Not necessarily is gonna happen on that property, you know what I mean, where we're going here.
yeah,
I was just kind of talking as to where I wanted to, you know what I mean, what would be a good number. And I didn't know I was being, you know, gonna be cross-examined on it.
yeah, I mean, the right to farm law is pretty strong, but I mean, it ends, you know, when someone discovers you're not, you know, following the BMPs, so.
Yeah, no, and that's the whole idea of this building. I want it to be basically a really self-sufficient building. I can come in one end, plow it to the other end. I got a 9-foot bucket on my pettibone, manure right there, it doesn't even hit the ground. Bring it over to the compost pile, bang, it gets sent down the line over the next 10 weeks. I don't know how efficient you really can be. I mean, how different is it from, you know, 3,000 chickens outside going to the bathroom, or a guy that's got 100 cows with the gas emissions from them? I mean, the study's done on that. Are we gonna go, nobody can have any animals?
Yeah.
But I've
No
been a
comments from the
business-
audience, please.
I'm sorry,
Address me,
I'm
please.
sorry. I was taught to look at people when they speak, so.
I understand, yeah.
Listen, I've been approved as an agricultural business for 5 years. I'm not here to be approved, okay? I got $3.6 million out, okay? If someone wants to pass the hat and give a collection, that's great. But to tell me that now when you're some other thing other than an agricultural business, that ain't happening. We got way too
We'll
much.
have to figure out what our action items.
I think the issue, sir, is making sure that impacts are mitigated. No one's telling you you can't do it, so.
Just a quick question. What's the area that is being developed? Like, how large is that?
We'll still be under 4 acres last time I ran out. So the current, you know, the existing business, so if you kind, and it's kind of, you know, a lot of it's just vegetated, unused area. But if you consider the driveway, a reasonable amount of space within that.
I was more concerned about the area that the chickens will be in.
Just my best guess is 2 to 3 well, 2 to 3 acres if we're gonna start it really depends on that enclosure. I mean, I don't think Wade doesn't have a problem if they're walking around his existing building, so in reality, if it's, we're gonna occupy about the front 4 acres, it's probably just under that, if we had to enclose them. They truly are allowed. They don't go very close to the road, they stay away from the road, so there's kind of a lot of environmental factors that control them, so.
They really, unless Kayla's running around with her, which she does quite often, they chase her like she's the mother. They really stay within 100 yards of the building. It's their protection from hawks. We have a lot of hawks out there. While we're talking about animals, everyone said, gonna bring coyotes. When I bought the place, the guy had cameras. He said, just to let you know, you got 3 bobcats on the property, 3 or 4 different bears on the property, and a bunch of coyotes and miscellaneous things. I know I have a baby moose on the property. I don't know what happened to the mother, but the baby still comes back and drinks from the water down there. You have animals. Look how much conservation land's behind me.
The use of bait boxes and poisons, the rats that are eaten by bobcats, hawks, all that. Secondary rodenticide poisoning is a very big issue with wildlife as well, so nothing over the purview of this board, but you should consider alternate methods for the wildlife in the area. One owl takes out hundreds more mice than any bait box would, and once you get rid of the owls, you don't have that natural pest control.
We do have an owl. He's actually sitting on my electric.
Looking for those rats.
Last week,
So-
I got a picture of him actually. But yeah, no, and we're all for the animals.
Right.
Yeah, I mean.
So
I was gonna say.
let's
do we
figure
want-
out some-
Yeah, so I've kinda got a list of action items, number 1 being I think the board has to make a motion potentially to seek town council opinion if there is still a question about the use. The permission of the use, and then obviously if that's done, we have to agree that we would cover that cost of town council. So that's kind of with the board, and then I've got, I just wrote more on stormwater treatment and details, so essentially I think the board and via the public comment, looking for us to detail out a little bit more as to, and we can provide physical details, more plan detail of physically on the plan of some of the stormwater, and maybe we'll try and make it as robust as possible. Relocate that compost area outside of building and setback, wetland setback areas. There seems to be a consensus that there's a wanting to see some degree of enclosure, so whether it's different types of fencing or movable fencing, even in parts of it, but the ability to create a boundary, even if it's a big one. So I'll review that with Wade. Submit the structure plans, so we do have some basic plans as to how this chicken house, I mean, it's an agricultural barn essentially, so they're basic, but we do have some initial sketches or plans, they're CAD plans for that, we'll submit those to the board. And then I just generally put review other comments, like I said, I acknowledge, I tried to do as best notes I can and try and get the common themes, so there might be a couple that maybe we'll, just so people don't have to go hunting for them, we'll provide maybe some of the best management practice items that we feel we fall under, put those in the response, but then identify different sections and just.
Can you identify, it was claimed that there were chickens here for 2 years. And then there was another claim that it's been an agricultural business for 5 years. So in those 2 or 5 years, best management practices have obviously been done. Can you provide us with a copy of any reports of current activity on that so that we could have a baseline to look at and what you've been doing up to this point?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that. I'll get with Wade and we'll kind of, again, collect all this information.
And what the 2 different things are is, when I initially got approved, I was only doing milling at the time, but it's agricultural. If you look up the state laws, it says milling's part of farm.
There are different uses, you could say I have an automobile use, but one is an auto body and one's auto repair and one's auto sales, and they're not all auto body, so.
That goes for the law.
Logs don't emit, feces and,
No, I-
smells
I
and they don't,
understand-
logs
I
don't
understand.
cluck. I did have chickens at one
No,
point.
no,
and
I understand.
I think there was a change of use in here, if anything. It's, my initial appearance is that our commercial zone doesn't allow this use, and I think we should make a motion to seek legal counsel on
Yeah, cause
whether
you already
this
approved it.
is or is
No,
not
we'll handle that,
an allowed use in this district, and or whether a change of the logging use is a use to a chicken farm is a suitable change.
I'm still a melt.
Motion?
That is a motion.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a
So that's
motion and a
what we'll point
second
to that,
to
the section
involve legal counsel on those two items. Any further discussion on that
Yes,
motion?
I
I'm right
would
there.
like to amend that, I believe under our fee schedule, if we have a legal consultation, the applicant is responsible for the cost of that, is
That's
that?
correct, the applicant
So
will bear the
that
cost
we
of that.
should add that to this motion, that at the applicant's cost, and try to establish some sort of figure for that maybe, or maybe get that from the lawyer, I don't know how
That'll
that
happen.
works.
That's already part, yeah, that'll happen.
I haven't done that before, so.
Okay, any further discussion on that motion?
That is, you just wanting to make sure that
do you wanna define the RSAs and the code?
that's why you're.
I think what the board's looking for, and I'm gonna add something, so I think what the board's gonna be looking for is interpretation by town council that the provisions under 674-32A, which is that presumption about the zoning, the dimension, the zoning district. That language compared to the permitted uses, I think is what we still call it, of the commercial industrial zone. That essentially our interpretation, confirming the position that the agriculture is in fact allowed because it's not addressed, or take an alternative position. But I think because of the question from Mr. Evans, also no matter which way that goes, under RSA 2134, which is just the definition of farming, one of those is lumbering. And I guess concursely, I guess at the same time, might as well just get concurrence that the existing operation, if that's what we're asking, qualifies under lumbering, which it does, but I think it's all dependent upon the first, obviously, comparison of 674-32 and the zoning code. And I can summarize this, if Blair and I need to work out the language, I can pull some things together and just ship it off and you guys can take it from there.
My only concern is they've indicated that the previous submission for them to even start the business, which we're not privy to, included some of that in some case, so I don't know where we go from there,
Interpretation?
but.
You mean it included legal interpretation of the statutes?
Well, we might not need the legal interpretation if it's already been approved in some way, shape, or form by zoning or the planning board.
Yep.
Not saying that's right or wrong either, I just.
Well, perhaps we could look at previous history on this site and see what the approvals were and.
Right, but that won't be ready for next meeting, that's all.
I mean, we have our documents that we submitted all electronically, but I know it would exist in the files, so it just matters of how we can get that.
Might be.
If not, we keep everything
If
electronic.
you got them, that's good.
We have them electronic, yeah.
So I don't, I'll vote for the motion, but I just. It may not be required. How do I?
Well, I'll put an email together, but the old versus the new.
Yeah, we could ask it in such a way where, maybe there's a short answer and then there's a long answer.
Okay.
So maybe she can take, assuming it's still the woman, the town council woman that typically handles Nottingham. She could come back and say, yeah, it's been blessed and there's no further.
Right.
But then if there is, well, there's some gray area, and then she wants to do the full long interpretation.
There'll be gray.
There's gonna be gray area. It's gonna be up here, but there's gonna be gray area.
Does that sound?
I think interpretation of the RSAs is done by lawyers in general and not lay people on a planning board or with various backgrounds. Unless any of us are lawyers, I don't know about.
This life. All right, any further discussion? All right, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
You didn't even
That was
recognize
unanimous, right?
Lady Hannah.
Public comment is closed. There's no more public comment on this case.
So
No,
tonight,
not tonight,
just
tonight.
just
We are,
tonight.
we're,
all right, that was my
we are very likely going to,
Make
we are going to
motion
be.
to extend
So,
this meeting.
hold on, before you do that, I just wanted, there's one more thing that I wanted to bring up. This board, we haven't had, many cases with this type of activity on it. Something that the board has done in the past is to do a public site walk to get a better idea of the property and the proposal on the property. I'm throwing that out there as an option if the board
Make a
wants to.
motion to, as proposed.
Okay, we have a motion to,
I'll second.
all right, and a second. But we need to decide when that would be. Site walk, when would that work?
I'm just looking at mine. I'm guessing, I know we'll get to this. Remind me, the board is the second and fourth?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. Our next meeting's April 22nd, May 13th, May 27th,
We ain't going that long.
and
It's gonna
June
be
10th.
tough to, does the board think that we can get something scheduled for next week? I don't know how long the board, if you need something back
Next
before.
week is fine.
Okay, I think we can look to next week. I generally leave it to the board to try and come up. You guys pull yourselves before I start giving you
Yeah.
availability.
Like Wednesday, 5 p.m.
Probably six.
Yeah, I can't do 5.
Yeah, 6 or 6:30. I mean, it's still light out when we get here, so 6 or 6:30, then everyone's done work. I'm sure you're pretty much done work by that time too.
When it gets
So
dark,
the 15th,
then I go inside and work.
So,
Wednesday.
the 15th, Wednesday the 15th at 6 PM, is that what we're thinking? Does that work for the board? I
the,
I
oh
can,
geez, what's going on this day?
yeah, I can make that work.
Stuff. Webinar.
Or 6:30 or what's like?
It was 6 PM, yeah, and that works for the
Yeah,
applicant.
I can do
Okay.
that. And I know you'll be there, so.
So Chris, your motion is for site walk Wednesday the 15th at 6 PM?
That is correct, sir.
Okay, and did we have a second? Was that Mr. Ryan who seconded that?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion on the site walk? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay,
Alright,
that carries unanimously. Okay, and this is a public site walk, so the public is able to attend. There will be no discussion of the actual merits of the case, but it is a public site walk.
We've been going to court off
Okay.
and off.
You can join to gather information, but you can't interrogate the board members or the applicant. It's purely for seeing the site and gathering information, just to be clear.
Next Wednesday?
Okay? Wednesday, the 15th at 6 PM, 123 Old Turnpike Road. Is that address
At the
right?
location.
Yeah, at the location.
You're gonna have to pick this up with them after. We'll take it up with Blair.
Okay, so I think our next step is to continue this hearing to a future meeting. When would it work for you, especially given the site, the site walk and everything? What's the,
We can come back at the next meeting. I think it's more timeline of, it's not worth the discussion until we have the feedback from town council.
right?
Historically, unless it's changed, that was hard to get in 2 weeks, just knowing.
Yeah, the 22nd's not gonna happen. I think.
Oh, yeah, no, I wasn't
It's the
thinking it was
13th.
right. May 13th or May 27th, maybe the 27th, just to make sure council's.
We'd
got
wanna
that.
go if we can't get town council feedback in 2 weeks, then we'd wanna go to the next meeting that we can go to. 13th.
So the 13th then?
Okay, we're gonna, we'll talk about it. Yeah, I know.
All right, so I will entertain a motion to continue this case to 6:30 PM on Wednesday, May 13th.
Motion as stated.
We have a motion from Mr. Evans, a second from Mr. Arsenal. Any further discussion on the continuation of this case? Hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. That was unanimous, thank you. So for the public, this case is being continued until May 13th at 6:30, that's a Wednesday as well. I feel like there was something else I needed to say with that.
You won't be re-notified.
That's right, you
This
will
is your
not be
notification.
re-notified of the meeting. This right here is your notification of that continued meeting time, okay? So again, that's May 13th at 6:30 PM here in this room.
You can restrict 2 minutes to everybody in the room like this time?
Sorry?
If there's a turnout the same size as this, yes. So submit your written testimony if you have things to say, and all of that will come to the board and be added to the case file so that it can be reviewed, even if you can't say everything that you want to say, okay?
If there is a request by the applicant, for some reason, the board to continue, that will be indicated on the agenda. So just keep an eye out on the town website.
Right,
For
and
some reason, the 13th needs to be continued.
And there was a question about the notification process for just any of these types of hearings. They are all posted with, the legal amount of notification required on the town website, in the Union Leader and other newspapers. And so the town website, the planning board website, where we have our current applications, is where you find the information on what's coming before the board. If you're in a butter, you will get a piece of mail saying that, an abutting property has a plan or something coming before the board. But if you're not in a butter, you have to check the planning board website in order to find that information, okay? Okay, as long as it's not long.
No, it's very short.
Okay.
The plans are also submitted on the website, so you can look at these plans and details and applications. Tracy, our staff planner, does a great job. Thank you.
Okay, so that's, right, we're good, this is continued. Yeah, Tracy.
I'd just like to add, I also posted on the bulletin board out front if you don't have a computer, and it's also at the post office. So the agendas are easily found even if you don't have a computer.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay, that concludes case 26007 for tonight. Now we have 6 other items on our agenda to attend to. All right. Where are y'all going? Okay, so the next item on our agenda is general public comment. This is not comment that has to do with any cases that were being heard. This is general public comment to the board. If you could all please exit and not converse in the room. We're trying to hold a meeting here. We have to get home too. Thank you.
Good one.
Okay, so general public comment, I am opening that at 9:42 PM. Anybody here to speak generally? Seeing taillights, okay. I am closing, do we?
You got 2 minutes.
Red herring. Yeah, right. All right, closing the public hearing, the general comment at 9:42. Okay, staff board member updates, please no more than 2 minutes. Nothing? Mr. Evans?
Nothing.
Okay, Mr. Lichtenwallner?
Nothing.
All right, I'm not, Conservation Commission and the Select Board had a hearing on Monday evening to purchase the 110 plus acres right behind us here. It passed unanimously. The public hearing took like an hour. But that 110 plus acres with over 1,000 feet along the North River is now going to be preserved for the town's benefit going forward. That's it for me.
Good.
All right.
Not much to say, SRPC, I'm gonna let Blair handle that.
All right, great. Mr. Ryan?
And I'll pass.
I didn't expect to get passed, but SRPC, is there anything in particular? I don't have anything. There's really nothing urgent.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay.
The one thing I wanted to point out, do you want to say anything about your volunteer?
Yeah, that's a good.
Is there a recruitment effort on that?
There is, yeah, we haven't had much turnout. So 10 a.m. on Saturday, April 25th, in this room, there will be a training by Tracy Tarr of GZA Environmental to teach volunteers how to verify vernal pools. So as part of the NRI update in town, we had GZA do a vernal pool inventory only on conserved lands in town. This is not on any private lands that have not been conserved. This is not going to be a regulatory anything like that. It's just part of our natural resources inventory to understand what extra resources we have on our already conserved areas. And so that training followed by a field trip to go look for one of the potential vernal pools that was identified up at a property on Flutter Street will take place between 10 a.m., about an hour for that training here in this room, and then followed by maybe a couple of hours of field work. There's only space for like 3 cars there, so we will have to carpool from here in order to make that work. So if you are interested, please reach out to, I don't know, I guess the land use coordinator, if there are people there in the public who are interested, and she can forward that to me since I'm the one kind of heading that effort up, if that works for you, Tracy.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. All right, that's it for that.
That was it.
We good? Okay. Next item on the agenda is reviewing master plan stuff. We're not gonna do that right now. Any other business that we need to address? So I do wanna say we need to sign our bylaws. I have the sheet here, so I just need people's signature very quickly before we leave. We don't have any plans to sign, right? Okay, great. And then approval of minutes, I'm tabling that until our next meeting. We only have one small case to hear then, from what I understand. And now we're going to adjourn. All right.